El Palm was nothing more than a lowly slave bought by a group of adventurers. They intended to use him as bait for the dungeon monsters, but the monsters here turned out to be far more bloodthirsty than expected. In just 1 month, nearly all of them were devoured by monsters. Only one survivor remained, crawling along the ground. Only now did he realize in shock that the bait, El Palm, was still completely unharmed, and he shamelessly begged El Palm for help. But all he received in return was a contemptuous smile. Everything had been part of El Palm's plan from the start. Only after waiting for the monster to swallow him whole did El Palm leap down and reveal his skill. Concentrating all his power into the tip of his spear, he lightly pierced through it and sent it to the afterlife. The remaining monsters could not escape the fate of being skewered like donuts beneath the fire arrow he created. It turned out that El Palm's true identity was one of the 6 great adventurers who had gone to annihilate the dragon race. Because of a moment of carelessness, he was unfortunately struck by the Dragon King's blast of Samadhi true fire and burned to ash. Unexpectedly, the moment he opened his eyes, El Palm had regressed 6 years into the past, right when the council was exploiting him and forcing him to work for free. Living in humiliation like a slave, El Palm first had to free himself. He headed straight to the Adventurers Guild headquarters. That man was ABI's, the representative of the Hunter Council. When he had just received the report that El Palm was the only survivor to make it out of the dungeon, he was already extremely surprised, and he was even more shocked to see that El Palm had not tried to run away. Instead, he came here demanding to become an adventurer. A difficult deal was proposed, a dangerous dungeon that had swallowed 1,200 teams. If El Palm could clear it and bring the treasure back, ABI's would grant any request he wanted. And so El Palm joined this 4-person party to conquer the dungeon. They were all very friendly, completely unlike the arrogant adventurer party from before. They were even willing to share dinner with him. But that night, the captain and his teammates suddenly came to El Palm with torches in hand. Without saying much, he stabbed his sword straight into the place where El Palm had been lying. He was certain he had put a large amount of poison into the food, intending to seize all the equipment for himself. Unexpectedly, when he opened it up, it was filled with nothing but firewood. At that very moment, a flame erupted and burned the spot where they were standing. It was the attack of a golden slime, glaring hungrily at its plump prey. It turned out El Palm had predicted everything long ago and tricked them in return, turning them into bait. Judging from the monster's unusually large size, it had definitely absorbed all the equipment from the 12 unfortunate adventurer teams. Its offensive power was terrifyingly strong as well, and it quickly melted all 4 of them into dry skeletons. At that moment, El Palm, hiding nearby, saw that the time had come and aimed straight at its core, firing with full force using an incredibly powerful fire arrow. The monster still was not defeated. It even fired back at El Palm. While skillfully dodging, he continued observing it. There were 5 cores left. He immediately drew his bowstring tight, accurately aimed at its weak points, and fired continuously. The final explosion rang out, signaling that the monster had been successfully eliminated. All that remained was its crimson heart, radiating an extremely strange energy. After returning to the guild, El Palm immediately reported the existence of the golden slime. Since it had absorbed all the items and treasure, the mission had failed. However, the fact that El Palm had defeated it alone was truly a miracle. He then showed off the 2 mana circles he had refined by absorbing the slime's power, and seeing this left ABI's unexpectedly terrified. He immediately offered to place him in rank D. No, if he wanted to continue extending his contract, ABI's would place him in rank C. Abiz's eagerness said everything about the power of mana circles. The more circles one had, the higher an adventurer's rank would climb, all the way to the peak. After El Palm agreed, ABI's was so delighted it was as if he had found a huge bargain. The first thing El Palm did after signing the contract was borrow money from ABI's for no other purpose than to redeem a slave. For the price of 2 million meso, that slave stared at El Palm with reddened eyes. Before El Palm's regression, the death of one person had caused the apocalypse to arrive faster. The polearm hero Eren had been murdered. Eren's first and final disciple was the one who set the apocalypse in motion. The murderous hero Dibwa was him. El Palm silently observed his actions. They were different from before his regression, but right now, he was still only a slave. Back home, he also had a younger sister suffering from black blood disease. El Palm threw out a lump sum exactly according to Dibwa's demand and proposed that the contract last 1 year. The profit split is 70-30. I get the right to choose the items. The employee at the gate counter was quite surprised. El Palm was drawing up a contract with a party member, not a slave contract. El Palm took out a sheet of paper and showed it to Dibwa. Here's the contract. Look at it. Without hesitation, Dibwa snatched the contract and shouted, "Don't you dare go back on your word." Dibwa bit his finger with his teeth, then stamped the contract with fresh blood. El Palm was rather shocked. Was he agreeing without hesitation because his younger sister's life was in danger? El Palm stood tall and said that since the seal was done, they should head straight to the gate. Dibwa replied excitedly, "Leave it to me." El Palm reminded him, "You'll have to prove your worth, Dibwa." Dibwa showed his confidence. "You won't find anyone more hard-working than me." After the transaction, the two of them entered the forest together. Walking behind him, Dibwa asked, "Boss, I'm grateful that you gave me a new weapon, but I'm more used to using a long sword. Let's go back and exchange it." El Palm told him, "From now on, when you're with me, you'll learn to use a polearm. If you don't like it, we can cancel the contract." After walking for a while, they came across a strange tree. Dibwa asked in confusion, "Are you planning to test my strength with this gate? It's red level, and the current maximum number of people who can enter is 8. Dibwa looked around blankly. "Where's everyone else, boss? Since we have so much money, our teammates must all be talented, right? Fine. At least we have a healer, don't we? Fighting is one thing, but having a healer still matters. Why are you looking at me like that? Don't tell me, boss." El Palm spoke up to reassure him. "There's no need to worry about teammates. We have enough people." Hearing that, Dibwa relaxed a little. "I knew it. I was just scaring myself." Then El Palm turned around and pointed at Dibwa. "Here, 2 people." The 4 eyes of the 2 men met in confusion, and Dibwa suddenly realized the problem. "What? Wait, no way." Before Dibwa could finish speaking, El Palm kicked him straight into the dimensional gate. "Stop wasting time. Hurry up and go in." Inside, Dibwa screamed with a face full of terror. Dibwa fell straight into a barren desert. As soon as he landed, El Palm appeared there too. Dibwa angrily shouted in El Palm's face, "Are you insane? 2 people entering an 8-person gate? Even insanity has limits. Do you think this is a joke or something? And on top of that, I have to use a weapon I'm not familiar with." Suddenly, a dense cloud of smoke rushed toward the 2 of them. Hidden within the smoke were countless moving tree stumps. Dibwa gripped the weapon in his hand and silently blamed himself. "It's over. This is all my fault. They're famous for their hard bark, so tough that even swords and spears have trouble piercing them. And on top of that, El Palm rushed forward first and told Dibwa to get out of the way." Dibwa panicked behind him and said, "Wait a second." El Palm used the fire arrow spell and burned those tree stump monsters to ashes. Dibwa could only stare wide-eyed in shock at El Palm's power. The monsters were increasingly engulfed by fierce flames. No matter how desperately they tried to charge forward, the fire arrows pierced through their bodies. And so, in the blink of an eye, El Palm defeated thousands of monsters all by himself. El Palm let out a long breath and said, "How disappointing. We only just got here, and you're already like this. Don't make that mistake again next time." Dibwa silently wondered, "Who the hell is this monster?" Night gradually fell inside a certain dark castle. Bijou was reporting the situation to her master. "The merchants have taken the bait. The plan still needs more time, but the people to be sent have already been selected. May we continue our actions, my lord?" The lord looked into the wineglass in his hand and replied, "You may." After receiving the order, Bijou bowed her head in obedience, and immediately afterward, she quickly disappeared. The Lord raised his wicked voice and declared beneath the moonlight, "Everything will go according to your will. You will release the sealed world." Back where El Palm and Dibwa were fighting, monsters lay scattered across the ground. Dibwa held a bag in his hand and reported, "There were 27. I collected all 10 mana stones." El Palm said, Let's go." The sun gradually rose to its peak, and the weather grew harsher by the moment. As Dibwa walked, I thought he was crazy, but it turns out he's no ordinary guy. Is that a remote control skill? I've never seen anyone use fire arrow like that before. If I go with someone this capable, I'll definitely make a pile of money, right? Great. With a 70-30 split, I'll be able to pay for medicine and living expenses. After walking a little farther, El Palm said, "There they are. another bunch of stumps. The two hid behind a nearby rock wall to observe. Dibwa reported there are around 8. No, 9 of them. El Palm clicked his tongue in praise. A perfect number. Dibwa felt a little confused. Huh? What do you mean? He stared blankly at El Palm's face. A stone was thrown out, making the log monsters notice it. While they were distracted, Dibwa jumped out from behind the rock wall and split one log in two with his polearm. The remaining monsters finally noticed the humans here. Dibwa now had to fight all of those logs alone. Damn it, I have to handle them myself? I've never used this weapon before, so this is such a pain. Even 10 lives wouldn't be enough. While fighting them, Dibwa kept cursing that bastard boss. El Palm stood behind him, observing Dibwa's every movement. He said he was only used to swords. No wonder his movements are so strange. But soon, he'll realize that the polearm is the weapon that will make him stronger than ever. There was no need to doubt his talent, because he was the only person chosen to become the disciple of the polearm hero Eren. The logs were beaten so hard by Dibwa that they could not escape. With just one strike, Dibwa could handle 2 or 3 of them at once. This polearm is strong, its attack range is long, and it's more convenient than a sword. When I relax, it even feels lighter. Then what if I hold it like this? Dibwa unleashed clean, effortless slashes. Wherever he went, he swept everything away. In an instant, the log monsters were reduced to dry corpses in the wasteland. El Palm had to admit that Dibwa was quick to grasp things. Even though he had not awakened yet, his ability had already reached this level. While Dibwa was chasing down the monsters, he suddenly felt the ground quake. Something shot out from inside the cliff like an arrow. Its power grew stronger by the moment, causing Dibwa to fall backward. Dibwa looked up in confusion. What is that? It turned out to be a Stumpy, and its trunk was taller than a mountain. It used the branches on its body to stab down into the ground. Fortunately, El Palm appeared in time and pulled Dibwa away. After escaping the danger zone, El Palm tossed Dibwa aside and directly faced Stumpy. You're just big, that's all. That only makes you easier to hit. A fire arrow shot towards Stumpy at the speed of light. Dibwa lay below and grinned smugly. That's it, show it your magic. But unexpectedly, Stumpy used its enormous branches to block it. El Palm quickly searched for another angle of attack. Its reactions are faster than I thought. Then how about this? He activated remote control, and with a single move, the arrow changed direction and flew toward the back of Stumpy. This time, it still easily destroyed the arrow, leaving El Palm extremely stunned. It blocked that too. Magic is useless. Realizing he could not defeat this Stumpy, Dibwa decided that running was the best of the 36 strategies and fled at full speed. Why are you still standing there? If you don't want to die, run. El Palm glanced at Stumpy and reasoned. It's not that the attack was useless. It shouldn't have been able to block fire arrow. The problem is those branches. Stumpy once again used its long, huge branches to attack Dibwa and El Palm. Its branches kept growing longer. In this urgent situation, Dibwa could only shout loudly to warn his boss, while El Palm quickly used his power. He summoned a huge rock to his side. Now, the rock was like a lifeboat, carrying Dibwa and El Palm away as they escaped Stumpy's pursuit. Standing on the rock, Dibwa could not stop admiring him. Amazing boss. We almost died. Thanks. El Palm said, Dibwa, you handle the stumps. I'll take care of Stumpy. Dibwa was startled and shocked when he saw a mob of pitch-black logs standing in front of him. Since when were they here? Before Dibwa could regain his composure, El Palm had already rushed off. Wait, why is he so fast? El Palm held his bow in hand and charged fiercely towards Stumpy. As soon as he arrived, he fired a fire arrow. On the other side, Dibwa was extremely worried. Without a proper plan, there's no way he can bring it down. We have to run quickly. A series of explosions occurred, but Stumpy was completely unharmed. See? I knew it. After many attempts, El Palm's arrow finally grazed across Stumpy's body. Dibwa's mouth fell open in shock. He pierced it. El Palm focused completely on finding Stumpy's openings. Its branches are more flexible than I thought, so it's hard to use remote control to dodge them and attack through the gaps at the same time. But now that I've reached the second circle, I can cast spells twice. This time, El Palm's arrow severed part of Stumpy's branch. While fighting the stumps, Dibwa watched the situation on El Palm's side. Unbelievable. Hidden behind one fire arrow is another arrow. No matter how fast it is, it can't dodge consecutive attacks like that. Even Stumpy has to give in. This guy is more than a monster. Wait, worry clearly appeared on Dibwa's face. A group of stumps had changed direction and were attacking El Palm. Seeing this, Dibwa shouted a warning. Behind you. Watch behind you. There were too many of them, so a few got past me. El Palm used his arrows to sweep away all the stumps, then spoke in a mocking tone and asked, Dibwa, you can't even handle these little ones? Stumpy, seeing El Palm let his guard down, immediately resorted to a cowardly sneak attack. Fortunately, El Palm reacted quickly. He jumped onto a nearby rock and launched himself high into the air, dodging Stumpy's fatal blow. If I leave even the slightest opening. And so El Palm and Stumpy continued feigning back and forth without stopping. Suddenly, one of Stumpy's branches shot straight toward El Palm. Dibwa flew over in time to rescue his boss. He placed a hand on El Palm's shoulder for leverage, then launched himself high into the air and used his polearm to cut that branch clean off. After completing his objective, Dibwa landed lightly on the ground, panting as he said to El Palm, I just saved you. Aren't you going to take back what you said earlier? El Palm smiled with interest. Fine, you've finally become useful, Dibwa and El Palm declared in unison. Then let's go. El Palm and Dibwa charged together to attack Stumpy. El Palm continuously fired fire arrows at Stumpy. Stumpy's long, winding branches were burned one after another by El Palm's fire arrows. It glared at El Palm in fury, and Stumpy's growls grew louder and louder. On this side, Dibwa seized the opportunity while Stumpy was not paying attention and rushed up to attack it. Holding the polearm in his hand, Dibwa delivered a decisive slash, and yet another branch was pierced through by a fire arrow. Stumpy screamed miserably in pain. El Palm suddenly realized they could attack from both sides. El Palm rushed forward and told Dibwa, I'll take the right. Dibwa happily continued, then the left is mine. At the same time, Stumpy had to endure attacks from both sides, one side using a polearm to cut down its branches, while the other side used fire arrows to burn them to ashes. Dibwa suddenly leapt onto the tree trunk, then ran around it with all his strength. At the same time, Dibwa used his polearm to cut away the remaining branches. Because he was so absorbed in the battle, Dibwa forgot to stay alert. As a result, another branch stabbed straight into his stomach. Red blood sprayed wildly from Dibwa's mouth. The pain was so intense that Dibwa could no longer stand. He began to stagger, then tumbled downward. Fortunately, El Palm controlled a rock in time and sent it flying over. The rock caught Dibwa and shot away. However, Stumpy would not let Dibwa escape so easily. It continued using its tree branches to smash the very rock carrying Dibwa. Standing on the other side, El Palm began to feel that things were getting more and more troublesome. He used his power to control all the nearby rocks. Dibwa also quickly jumped onto another rock. Damn it, I almost ended up dead for good. Under Stumpy's fierce pursuit, Dibwa hurriedly jumped from one rock to another to escape. At the same time, El Palm used fire arrows to wrap around Stumpy's body and restrain it. El Palm shouted, saying, Let's finish it, Dibwa. Dibwa poured all his strength into his polearm, then used it to slash straight into Stumpy's eye. Red poisonous fluid sprayed out like a waterfall. Stumpy's earth-shaking scream echoed throughout the entire area. Dibwa suddenly lost his grip and fell hard to the ground. Even after that painful landing, Dibwa still refused to give up. He glanced up at Stumpy with eyes full of hatred and shouted a warning. It's not over yet, you damn monster. As soon as he finished speaking, he launched himself up again, preparing to attack. Stumpy once more. Down below, El Palm used his power to control Dibwa's polearm. The moment he swung his hand backward, the polearm stuck in Stumpy's eye was pulled out as well. Dibwa quickly caught his weapon, then jumped forward and demanded, Come on, Stumpy, open your mouth. I've still got dessert for you. Dibwa used his polearm again, slashing another blow into Stumpy's remaining eye. Everything seemed as though it would sink into a crimson sea of blood. Because the pain was too great, Stumpy began spinning around wildly, causing Dibwa to lose his balance and fall to the ground again. The moment he landed, Dibwa hurriedly raised his head to look. He saw Stumpy opening its huge, gaping mouth wide. Fire arrows shot up from behind. They formed spirals that flew straight into Stumpy's throat. Now Stumpy's entire mouth was filled with blazing flames, and its whole body gradually sank into a sea of fire. El Palm walked over and praised his teammate. Nice work, Dibwa. Dibwa turned his head and said, You too. The flames of victory continued burning without end. This was the first resounding victory the two of them had achieved since forming their team. Night had already fallen at a small house in town. There, Dinev sat at the dining table, waiting for Dibwa to return. "It's too late. I should eat first and go to sleep. Thank you for the meal." Suddenly, a sound came from outside the door, making Dinev a little frightened. She hurriedly ran over and opened the door to check. "Who is it?" What appeared before her eyes was the battered figure of her older brother, Dibwa. He smiled and said, "I'm home." Dinev's face began streaming with tears when she saw her brother so badly injured. Unable to contain her emotions, Dinev rushed over and threw her arms around him. "Welcome home, big brother." Deep inside the forest, a small house had been built there. Elpalm quietly walked into that dark little house. Elpalm stood silently for a long time inside the room. On the table was a photograph of him laughing happily with someone else. Inside Abiz's office, he held a stack of documents in his hands and studied them. The day of the expedition into the high-level 100-person gate is almost here, but who should I send? This expedition was a major event involving all 10 of the 10 great merchant guilds. The reason it was so attractive was that the items inside could include rare or even legendary objects. Naturally, the difficulty was also extremely high. The 3 Natasha sisters of the Golden Rich Merchant Guild possessed skills considered unimaginable for magicians with 2 mana circles. Compared to them, even though they also had 2 mana circles, the adventurers of the Gayfer Machinists Guild were nothing special at all. To be blunt, the manpower of the other great merchant guilds, including the Golden Rich Merchant Guild, was all extremely powerful. Among them, our guild has the worst reputation and is also the weakest, though I'm not entirely certain. While he was calculating matters related to the upcoming battle, someone suddenly walked in, making ABI's somewhat irritated. "Who dares come in without knocking?" ABI's was startled when he realized that the person who had entered was none other than Rockin. He quickly stood up and showed respect. "Lord Rockin." Rockin asked, "How is the selection of members for this gate expedition going?" ABI's bowed his head and replied, "I apologize. That matter still hasn't." Rockin complained slightly. "You seem to be working rather slowly. That isn't like you. What about the adventurers you mentioned before?" ABI's expressed some of his own thoughts. "As for Elpalm, I'm still rather concerned about him. Cherv's entire party is dead, and there is no way to confirm what happened there because there are no witnesses. He may truly be skilled, but for something important, we need certainty." Rockin asked, "Then why not test him again? The event only happens once, after all." "Ah, that's right. I can create a team made up of candidates we are secretly considering and have them attack some nearby gate. Many people will be entering it, so we will learn everything about them." Just as Rockin had planned, many adventurers had come here to participate, and among them were Dibwa and Elpalm. One adventurer approached Elpalm and asked, "Are you in Group 5? 2 slaves?" Elpalm glanced at the people around him. No matter how he looked at it, they clearly did not welcome him. To them, slaves were only people who brought trouble. That was an unwritten rule among experienced adventurer parties. It seemed they were true awakened adventurers with 2 mana circles. They looked far stronger than Cherv's party from before. In other words, they were strong enough that they had no need for slave bait. ABI's approached and asked, "Is everyone here?" Elpalm was also rather surprised. "He came here personally?" ABI's explained, "I'll keep this brief. The trial will begin in a few minutes. Those who show their potential will be given an opportunity." A curious adventurer asked, "What opportunity?" ABI's laughed and answered, "The opportunity to take part in the 100-person gate expedition." Everyone's mouths fell open in shock. "A 100-person gate?" ABI's added, "You will receive special treatment if you show your abilities in this gate." Elpalm smiled and thought to himself, so that is his scheme. ABI's encouraged all the participants. "Do your best." After the dimensional gate was activated, everyone gradually entered. "Another forest gate?" An arrogant adventurer said, "I'll only cooperate when we fight the boss. Split up, explore, search for everything, and regroup when there is a signal." Elpalm and Dibwa were isolated. The two stood there in silence, and no one paid any attention to them. On Dolan's side, he kept urging everyone, "We don't have much time. Focus on hunting." One of his subordinates immediately replied, "Yes, Lord Dolan." Hearing a strange sound, Dolan glanced around to check. "Only one monster?" And it's another mushroom monster. Dolan complained in annoyance. What a waste of time. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out his staff and used the skill energy bolt to attack the mushroom monster. Dolan calmly ordered his underlings. Boring. Pick up the magic stone of drops, and let's go. Unexpectedly, when the smoke cleared, the mushroom monster appeared again. Everyone was stunned when they saw it. What? It isn't even injured? Is it so strong that it can resist first circle magic? But it doesn't matter. We have numbers. Suddenly, a northern wind began to blow fiercely. Dolan felt that something was wrong and immediately shouted a warning to everyone. Something's different. Everyone, be careful. In the blink of an eye, Dolan's entire adventurer group was surrounded by mushroom monsters from both sides. The two sides rushed into close combat. Skilled slashes were unleashed, and after a long stretch of non-stop fighting, the mushroom monsters were finally defeated. Everyone stood there gasping from exhaustion. It's finally over. One worried adventurer asked, Lord Dolan, the monsters are stronger than we expected. What should we do? Dolan seriously calculated a strategy. We will have to face an unimaginable number of monsters. If this continues, we will soon be exhausted, and if that happens, our lives will be in danger. Ignore the previous agreement and go fight the boss on our own. Quickly, before these small monsters drain all our strength. On this side, Elpalm was also thinking of a suitable plan. Most of the other groups were likely thinking the same thing. Deebwa stood there panting, using what little breath he had left to say, that sounds reasonable. I hope it works. But why are you just standing there talking instead of helping me? Elpalm calmly replied, there are only 3 monsters. Deebwa said, even so, you said we had to make use of our time, didn't you? Hearing that, Elpalm urged him on. That's right. Let's keep moving. Deebwa said aggressively. Let's go take down the boss. However, Elpalm had another idea. We clear out the monsters first. Deebwa asked blankly, what? Didn't that guy just say we were going to kill the boss? Elpalm stared into the distance and said, and I sense something dangerous here. Meanwhile, Dolan's group continued moving deeper inside. As they walked, one of his subordinates suddenly called out, Lord Dolan, look over there. There's an exit. Dolan cautiously ordered, I didn't think we would find it this quickly. It doesn't matter. Mark this place. Suddenly, one of the members burst into mad laughter. Dolan was alarmed and asked, what's wrong with him? Hey, Evan, shut your mouth. Evan ignored Dolan's words, and his laughter grew louder and louder. Dolan angrily placed a hand on Evan's shoulder and said, do you hear me? If you keep this up, you'll lure the monsters here. Evan turned to look at Dolan. His face was covered in tears and snot, while his mouth remained stretched wide in laughter. But Evan grew less and less able to control that eerie laughter of his. Dolan quickly covered his nose with his hand. Poison gas. This is bad. I need to get out of here immediately. Dolan quickly fled the area, but the monster had already discovered him. It immediately flew after Dolan, and the top of the monster's head constantly released clouds of poisonous gas. The gas was purple. When Dolan looked back, he saw it opening its mouth wide and laughing hysterically. Dolan also began laughing foolishly. He looked no different from Evan just moments earlier. His face was soaked, and his mouth was constantly wide open in laughter. On Elpalm's side, the two of them kept walking and walking until they finally arrived at a place where a river flowed through. Deebwa, walking behind, kept thinking, all day yesterday, he barely fought at all. In that case, should I? Suddenly, Deebwa looked up at the sky and saw a flash of red light. A signal flare. They found the boss. Even though we discussed firing a signal and gathering when the boss was found, I don't believe they would actually do that. Elpalm glanced at the adventurers standing in front of him and realized that one group was missing. Iburu sighed and said, looks like everyone is here. I'll explain the situation again. One adventurer immediately objected. Mage Dolan's squad still hasn't arrived. Iburu coldly replied, forget them. We've waited too long. We found the boss's location, and we also saw Dolan's entire group get slaughtered by it. Iburu coldly replied, forget them. We've waited too long. We found the boss's location, and we also saw Dolan's entire group get slaughtered by it. That boss is the Raging Poison Mushroom. Everyone was stunned after hearing that. What? The Raging Poison Mushroom? We're in serious trouble. Even with this many people, we may not be able to take down that boss. If we've encountered the Raging Poison Mushroom, don't even dream of defeating it. The only option now is to find the exit and escape. Dibwa asked in confusion. El Palm, is the boss really the raging poison mushroom, the one famous for being difficult to fight? El Palm stood silently in thought. So it's that one. That is the hardest boss to fight at my current level. Because of the poison gas it releases, I won't be able to get near it. That also means that no matter how many people there are, they won't be able to do anything to it. To defeat it, we have to use long-range attacks. However, half-baked attacks won't damage it, because it is extremely tough and fast. Standing beside him, Dibwa grew irritated when he saw El Palm ignoring him. Hey, are you listening to me? Are you deliberately ignoring me? Hey, El Palme. Ibiru was still discussing a plan with everyone else. Unfortunately, the boss is right in front of the exit. If we want to get out, we have no choice but to face it. Hearing that, Dibwa pounded his chest and declared proudly, "Are you scared of it? A mere boss is nothing at all. Just one fire arrow from this big brother of mine." El Palm sternly ordered, "Dibwa, shut your mouth." Dibwa grew furious at his big brother El Palm's humility. El Palm said, "We'll die if we face it blindly. My fire arrows can't injure it." Dibwa was startled and asked, "Huh? Why not?" El Palm immediately explained, "Even the small monsters here are extremely tough, so the boss must be many times tougher." Ibiru sighed in disgust. He's saying things everyone already knows. This is exactly why slaves. A worried adventurer urged Ibiru, "There's no time to complain. We need to find a solution to this." On this side, El Palm raised his hand and said, 50,000 meso. Ibiru felt puzzled. What? El Palman surat, 50,000 meso per person. There are 30 people here, so that makes 1.5 million meso. Give that money to me, and the two of us will act as bait so you can escape. A silent atmosphere covered the entire area. Dibwa nearly went insane at El Palm's decision. Damn it, what the hell is he saying? Ibiru shouted loudly in warning. Don't be so arrogant. You may be used to doing things like a slave, but man proposes and heaven disposes. That boss isn't as easy to deal with as the others. If we are moving and you get caught and killed by it, then we'll die along with you. Slaves entering a high-level gate are nothing but obstacles. Besides, what can a guy next to you even do? He hasn't even awakened. What can a slave and a two-circle magician accomplish? Faced with Ibiru's severe insults, Dibwa became even more resentful. These bastards, they're insulting me. They're trying to provoke me. I don't want to be bait. El Palm immediately asked back, "Then what do you plan to do? Do you have a better plan?" Seeing Ibiru hesitate, El Palm decisively asserted, "You don't, do you? If you did, you wouldn't have needed to fire the signal. While I'm at it, let me make something clear. My group consists of one two-circle magician and one one-circle magician." Dibwa's mouth fell open in shock. When did I awaken? What? Since when? I really am a genius. Your group has 2 magicians. At that mocking question, Ibiru could only fall silent. An adventurer rushed forward from behind and said, "Wait, if you can really do it, I'll pay." However, we didn't bring that much money with us. El Palm leisurely replied, "That's not a problem. We'll come collect it after we get out. So if we don't make it out of here, you lose nothing." Even so, everyone here has to agree. Decide now. A while later, dark poisonous gas from the mushroom monster began appearing at the exit. Up above, the mushroom monster was savoring the delicious prey that had been the adventurers. Noticing a fire arrow flying toward it, the mushroom monster realized that someone wanted to challenge it. The arrow struck the mushroom monster's head, creating a tremendous explosion. Smoke and dust spread thickly in every direction. Meanwhile, El Palm and Dibwa had used pieces of cloth as masks to cover their mouths and noses, avoiding the poisonous gas. The two carefully advanced step by step toward the mushroom monster. "Dibwa, we move as soon as the boss sees us." Dibwa still could not accept reality. Do we really have to do this? The mushroom monster's eyes began to glow. Once it identified its enemies, it immediately flew forward at high speed. El Palm and Dibwa also quickly took off running. It's coming. Why is it so fast? In the blink of an eye, the mushroom monster was only about an arm's length away from El Palm and Dibwa. The adventurers also quickly fled. Now, everyone hurry. Activate the gate before those two get killed. They touched the pillar in time, activating a barrier. The dimensional gate was finally opened. Go hurry! On El Palm and Dibwa's side, they were still being fiercely chased by the mushroom monster. Just as they were running smoothly, more mini-monsters appeared in front of Dibwa. Oh damn it, do I look that easy to pick on? Dibwa gripped the polearm in his hand and charged forward to fight them. Get lost! With just one slash, the whole group of monsters had their heads and bodies severed. While he was fighting those small fry, the lone mushroom monster had already appeared right behind Dibwa. It opened its huge mouth, bearing sharp teeth, and was about to bite him. Fortunately, El Palme quickly used fire arrow, shooting straight into the mushroom monster's body and saving Dibwa. The monster's mouth was covered in red spores, and poisonous gas kept spreading from inside its mouth. El Palm fired another fire arrow straight at the mushroom monster's head, then shot again, but this time the mushroom monster managed to dodge the attack. But El Palm still refused to stop. He continuously fired arrows to destroy the monster. As it leaped toward the two of them, the arrow behind it curved back and followed it. Arrows were fired from all directions, making it difficult for the mushroom monster to move. After escaping the maze of arrows, the mushroom monster crazily chased the two of them again. It's catching up. Ahead of them was a gorge, and below it was a long river. So El Palm and Dibwa decided to jump down. After hesitating for only a moment, the mushroom monster caught up and used its long arm to grab Dibwa, but it was too late. Dibwa even happily taunted the mushroom monster. "Hey, you damn monster, take this." From below, El Palm fired an arrow straight up toward the cliff. The fire arrow struck the mushroom monster's body and suddenly exploded, flames blazing fiercely, while El Palm and Dibwa splashed into the rushing water. Who knew where the two of them would be swept away? After soaking in the river for hours, El Palm and Dibwa finally climbed onto the shore, their bodies soaked through. Dibwa panted and asked, "What the hell was that thing?" While wringing out his clothes, El Palm replied, "Didn't you hear? It's the boss monster of this place. Looks like we'll need to prepare more carefully if we want to kill it." Dibwa stared blankly at El Palm. He burst into laughter and asked, "Boss, are you saying we're going to prepare to kill it? Am I hearing things?" El Palm calmly answered, "You heard me right." Dibwa's mouth fell open in shock. "Are you kidding me?" El Palm asked in confusion. "What's wrong, Dibwa? Didn't we come here to hunt monsters?" Dibwa snapped. "That was before we knew there was a boss raging poison mushroom here. Don't you know there's such a thing as retreating?" El Palm explained. "Once you leave, you won't be able to enter the gate again." The more Dibwa thought about it, the angrier he became. Weren't we supposed to escape after finishing our job as bait? How are we supposed to kill that boss when even magic missiles don't work on it? Didn't he say we'd die if we fought that thing? El Palm closed his eyes and said, "The situation has changed. The contest is already over, so we don't need to care much about that anymore. Above all, we'll get an extra reward now. Isn't that great? And from what you're saying, are you planning to break your contract with me?" Dibwa was left speechless by El Palm's question. A few seconds later, Dibwa pretended to be clueless and answered, "I never thought of that. But you'll pay me extra, right?" El Palm smiled and confirmed, "Of course." Dibwa said, "Then at least tell me how we can kill it when arrows and swords don't work on it. I have no intention of sacrificing my life. Is there a way to kill that thing?" A dazzling red light flashed, and a group of false knights had safely escaped from that world. ABIs was surprised. They're already out from the gate? 40 people like this, didn't they conquer it too quickly? Zubair, how is it inside the gate? It seems a few people are missing. Are they still inside? Zubair hurriedly knelt and answered, "We failed to clear the gate. Dolan's group was wiped out. El Palm is still inside. We were only able to escape because El Palm and the others acted as bait. The boss in there can't be handled. It's too strong." ABIs snorted in displeasure and asked, "So you did nothing but run away?" Zubair tried to justify herself. "The boss is a raging poison mushroom. It's too powerful. There was nothing we could do, Lord ABIs." ABIs turned away in irritation. "Let's go back." Zubair called out. "Lord ABIs, wait. El Palm's group still hasn't come out. The gate is still open. Perhaps they're still alive." But ABIs said firmly, "They won't survive. It's only a matter of time. Didn't you say so yourself? The boss is a raging poison mushroom, right? If you want to wait, you can wait by yourself. I don't have time." ABIs muttered angrily to himself, "Useless fools. I suppose they were just unlucky to run into the poison mushroom boss here. With only 2 groups left inside, killing the raging poison mushroom is impossible. Give up. I don't want to waste time on ordinary adventurers like that. What I want is an adventurer who could defeat that thing inside." Within the gate, El Palm stood proudly on the cliff. He raised his bow high and aimed at the mushroom monster. He was someone who could turn the impossible into the possible. After firing the first arrow, El Palm's momentum grew even fiercer. Let the hunt begin. The arrow was fired with overwhelming power. It shot through the air at terrifying speed, enough to frighten every beast. This boss is faster and tougher than any monster we've faced before. Most importantly, It uses poisonous mist that spreads through the air, something extremely difficult to deal with. In that case, it's better to keep our distance and attack from range. But the fire arrows I can create right now aren't powerful enough. However, if I use remote control to twist the arrow and fire at high speed, its piercing power will increase. This is something I can only do in the forestry world. That was what I came up with when facing this raging poison mushroom boss. A skill that turns the impossible into the possible, increasing my chance of defeating it. Fire Spear. The arrow crossed forests and streams, shooting straight toward the monster. It let out a loud growl that echoed through the mountains and forest. The arrow spun forward continuously like a drill. It plunged straight into the raging mushroom monster's body and pierced all the way through it. El Palm stood on this side of the mountain, watching intently. The nearby ancient trees were also destroyed by El Palm's arrow, and flames spread through the forest. I tried to pierce its head in one strike, but it seems I missed. Looks like this is going to be troublesome. The mushroom monster screamed in madness and thrashed without end. Then it ran forward at incredible speed. Another fire arrow was released. This time, the mushroom monster still easily dodged it. Using Fire Spear while moving to find an advantageous position is difficult. On top of that, Fire Spear's cooldown is too long. I have to finish the boss before it reaches me. The monster leaped forward and avoided the explosion. Debo was hiding and waiting by a nearby tree. The monster always had its mouth open on this side, bearing those razor-sharp teeth. El Palm shouted the signal. Now! As soon as he received the signal, Debo gripped the rope tightly and pulled with all his strength, stretching it taut. The monster failed to notice it, tripped over the rope right in front of it, lost its balance, and fell face first. Unfortunately for it, right in front of the monster was a muddy swamp. After it raised its head, mud was smeared all over its face. El Palm stood on a mountaintop, looking down below. He held his bow firmly in his hand with a commanding posture. The crazed mushroom monster kept growling. Debo angrily cursed right in the monster's face. "You rotten, stinking mushroom." As he cursed, Debo controlled his pole arm and sent it flying toward the monster. Debo even drove it straight into its eye without mercy. After delivering a critical blow, Debo jumped back, still tightly gripping his weapon. The monster's poison gas exhaust system was gradually damaged, and the amount of poison gas decreased somewhat. Debo stood on this side with a provocative attitude. "Finally, I can breathe more easily. The air's cleaner now. Shall we play a little?" The giant mushroom monster had been lured to the swamp. El Palm wondered whether the conditions were suitable. The key to this strategy was luring that monster into the swamp, because the basics of monster hunting were to neutralize the prey's advantage. Once it fell into the swamp, it meant the monster had lost its strongest weapon. The monster roared, opening its mouth full of sharp teeth toward them. Deepwood taunted it. "What's wrong? Can't do anything because your pores are all blocked. How humiliating." He swung the large axe in his hand with both arms, then loosened his grip, letting the axe spin freely through the air toward the monster's body. The powerful axe blade sank deep into its body. Then Debois channeled energy through it, causing the mushroom body to explode. He used the rope attached to the axe to pull his weapon back. This attack dealt heavy damage to the poison mushroom. The reason we lured this damn monster here wasn't just to block its pores. A gloomy swamp is the worst map for any monster whose attacks depend on speed. The swamp beneath it made it much harder for the poison mushroom to move. From the cliff, El Palm fired a fire spear downward. The arrow easily struck the monster's head and exploded. The power of Fire Spear was as great as a meteor crashing down onto its head. The light of the explosion blinded Debois. He muttered, "Is it dead?" But after the smoke cleared, the monster's figure could still be seen, standing firm. He exclaimed, "Dear gods, this damn thing is as tough as a leech." El Palm shouted, "Hurry and attack its magic core. Its weak point must be in its head." Debois replied, "Got it." Then he swung the axe in his hand again. The sharp axe blade aimed at the monster's head, but unexpectedly, this time the monster had learned the pattern of his attack. It raised one hand and easily caught the axe handle. To Debois' surprise, it roughly pulled him back toward itself using the rope connected to the axe. El Palm circulated blue magic in his hand. A large log appeared in midair and flew toward the monster. Debois immediately grabbed a branch. When the monster reflexively knocked the large log aside, it was also pulling Debois, changing his direction. Before escaping, he did not forget to kick the savage monster in the head. Finally, he landed safely nearby. The axe also returned to Dibwa's hand. This time, he switched to a speed-based attack style. Dibwa moved nimbly around the monster using the tree branches, drawing its attention. Meanwhile, El Palm continued chanting and gathering energy. After gathering enough power, he suddenly used the mud of the swamp beneath the monster's feet. The mud rose high and poured down like water onto the mushroom monster's head. At the same time, it created a screen that blocked its vision, helping Dibwa easily launch a sneak attack. The monster roared angrily when it saw Dibwa's faint silhouette through the curtain of mud. It reached out with its clawed hand, wanting to grab him, but there was no one behind it. While it was still stunned, Dibwa appeared right behind it and struck the mushroom body with his axe. For this blow, Dibwa had deliberately aimed at the position of the monster's mushroom head. He also used all his strength to cut that head down. The disgusting head, full of fangs, fell heavily into the mud, leaving only the monster's body swaying in place. Dibwa panted, recovering from his all-out attack. But just as he raised his thumb to praise El Palm suddenly realized something was wrong. El Palm was startled and could not believe his eyes. Behind Dibwa, the monster's body had begun moving normally again. It used its huge arm to strike Dibwa from behind. Both he and his weapon were sent flying into the swamp. The berserk mushroom monster, though it had lost its head, still roared with warning cries. El Palm raised the bow in his hand. What's going on? Wasn't its head cut off? His fire arrow shot straight down at the monster's body. The heat caused the swamp water to evaporate into curtains of white smoke. When the steam gradually dispersed, it could be seen that the mushroom monster had escaped the arrow at extremely high speed. It turned out it had also learned Dibwa's way of moving on the large tree branches over the swamp. El Palm could sense that something was wrong. He used magic to lift the branch the mushroom monster was standing on. The monster immediately lifted its legs and moved. Its target was the cliff where El Palm was standing. With its momentum, the monster clung to the cliff and began climbing upward. This time, things were truly bad. El Palm had only one arrow left. There was no such thing as another cooldown period, and he could no longer shoot arrows recklessly. Just then, Dibwa's angry voice rang out from the swamp. Damn it, I'm really pissed now. The mushroom monster's sudden blow had made his head bleed, and it had truly enraged him. His anger made him determined to chop this ugly mushroom into pieces and bring it back to stir-fry with vegetables. Dibwa hurled an axe, strike powerfully toward the monster. At that moment, both its hands and feet were busy clinging to the cliff, leaving it unable to resist. The axe brutally embedded itself in the middle of the monster's body, splitting it into two halves. Its lower half, having lost control, fell into the swamp and sank. Dibwa grinned and cursed. Serves you right, you bastard. But he quickly had to shut up when the upper half, as if it had an engine attached, continued clinging to the cliff and climbing upward. Dibwa could not help shouting loudly to El Palm, warning him to be careful. At that moment, El Palm once again drew the bowstring tight in his hand. An arrow grazed the mushroom monster's arm, accidentally revealing a pair of blood-red eyes inside the hollow, rotten mushroom body. This was its real brain, a pitch-black spore head, hideously ugly. El Palme Narif. So that's your real head. He held a flare gun in his hand and aimed at it. Thanks for letting me know. Dibwa stared in shock at what he was using. A flare gun? Don't tell me that attack, just now, was a trick. The magic staff in El Palm's hand emitted a brilliant light. He chanted Fire Spear and attacked head-on at the black head hidden deep inside the mushroom body. The fiery energy spun like a tornado, stabbing straight into the monster's head. Then it did not stop, but pierced straight through its body like a fried fish cake skewer. A huge explosion rang out as the monster fell from the cliff into the swamp. Even from far away, the powerful shockwave could be felt. Dibwa shook his head and sighed. It suffered right up to the very end. El Palm used magic to control vines, wrapping them around Dibwa. He quickly pulled him out of the swamp and up onto the cliff with him. Dibwa breathed a sigh of relief. I thought I was done for. The explosion of the berserk mushroom monster had completely released all the poisonous gas inside its body. Now the entire swamp was covered by a layer of deep purple poisonous gas. Dibwa asked suspiciously, It really is over, right? El Palm nodded in confirmation and also gave him praise. You did well, Dibwa. Next, hurry and collect the 10 magic stones. Once the poison disperses, before he could finish speaking, he suddenly saw a black shadow flash past the corner of his eye. El Palm turned around warily. It was the monster's upper half. It screamed in pain in midair, and within its body was a blazing red crystal, along with poisonous gas spreading everywhere. Dibwa, far from being afraid, smiled excitedly as if he had seen treasure. That day, in the meeting room, Rockin laughed loudly after receiving the news. "So that's why you came back when you saw them fail so miserably." Those words made ABI's choke, unable to respond. Rockin continued to needle him. "Your temperament is still as energetic as ever, isn't it?" ABI's honestly bowed his head. "I'm truly sorry, my lord. I believe it would be best to leave this matter to the Cygnus Knights." Suddenly, a knock sounded from outside the meeting room, interrupting ABI's. ABI's angrily called out, "Didn't I say this isn't the time to talk? Go back." But the person knocking completely ignored his words. That person directly pushed the door open and stepped inside. "I'm coming in." ABI's flew into a rage. "What? How dare you?" But when he saw the person who had entered, he could no longer speak. El Palm called out loudly, "I'm back." Rockin smiled with unprecedented excitement, though a trace of cunning lurked within his grin. "How fascinating. El Palm, was it? You look as though you've just returned from the dead. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Rockin. You're El Palm, correct? You truly are as tenacious as the rumors say. You're exactly the kind of person our association needs." El Palm bowed and politely interrupted him. "Thank you for the compliment, sir." Rockin nodded approvingly. "Very good. I like your manners. I'll ask you one question." Rockin stared directly into his eyes. "Do you think you can survive the 100-person gate?" El Palm met his gaze without the slightest fear and answered honestly, "It would be quite difficult." His answer surprised both Rockin and ABI's beside him. Unable to tolerate El Palm's composure any longer, ABI's snapped, "Is that any way to speak to Lord Rockin? El Palm, don't think you can say and do whatever you please just because I registered you as an adventurer. Don't forget that you still owe an enormous debt." Rockin spoke with renewed interest. "Quite difficult? That means it's still possible, doesn't it?" Resting his chin on his hand, he studied El Palm. "I don't like beating around the bush, so I'll get straight to the point." He took the initiative and asked, "What do you want?" After returning, El Palm told Dibwa what had happened during the meeting. Upon hearing it, Dibwa spat out the water in his mouth. He shouted in astonishment in the middle of the tavern, "What? 5 million meso per person? That's 10 million meso for the two of us. You asked for far too much." El Palm, his face dripping wet, gave him a cold look. Dibwa awkwardly said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but don't you think you're being a little too greedy? They'll definitely reject that demand. There goes our first job." Wiping his face, El Palm replied, "You don't need to worry. They'll accept." Dibwa did not believe him and argued, "You're always indifferent, no matter how chaotic things get. If ABI's loses his temper, he'll blacklist us from the association." Just then, someone approached them. "You two look awfully relaxed. You don't look like men who barely escaped death." Iburu walked toward them as he spoke. Dibwa immediately slammed the table and shouted, "What did you say? Is that any way to talk to the people who saved your life? I haven't liked you since we entered the gate. Let's go outside and settle this properly." Unexpectedly, Iburu bent deeply at the waist before Dibwa and El Palm. "We're sorry. I apologize for looking down on you too. I've been ashamed of myself ever since. So I came here today to offer you my sincere apology. This is the payment we agreed upon, 1.5 million meso. I added a little extra as a token of my gratitude." Dibwa took the heavy pouch. "Oh, well, thanks." But El Palm flatly refused. "We don't need it. We'll take exactly 1.5 million, no more, no less," El Palm said coldly. "I only accept payment for my work. I have no need for your gratitude. That is all I have to say." The other three had not expected him to react that way. Dibwa resentfully removed the extra money and returned it. "If you weren't going to take it, you should have said so from the start. You got my hopes up for nothing." El Palm continued, "Your name is Iburu, correct? Would you be willing to risk your life working with me to earn money?" Back in the meeting room, ABI's was shouting in protest. "You can't do this, sir. We're talking about 10 million meso. With that much money, you could hire a 3-circle or even 4-circle magician. Even if he is the best candidate currently available, you shouldn't favor him this much. He's only trying to extort money from us. Let me summon him here and renegotiate the price." Rockin slowly replied, "Are you truly that naive? Have you considered that he might return and demand twice as much?" Rockin handed ABI's a sheet of paper. "Read this." ABIs accepted it and looked it over. For this expedition, the Gayfer Machinists Guild will only be sending El Palm's party. What can a party of only 2 people accomplish? But when ABIs reached the end, his expression grew tense. Is this true, sir? Rockin smiled. If that information is false, we'll be in serious trouble. I paid a great deal of money to obtain it. ABIs had never expected Dark Lord Jean to appear there. Rockin's expression became completely serious. Don't make any unnecessary mistakes, ABIs. The war has already begun. Over the following days, the adventurers gradually assembled before the 100-person gate. The various parties gathered, rested, and discussed their strategies. I can't believe they actually accepted your demand, Dibwa said amid the crowd. El Palme merely told him not to get too excited and to focus on the coming battle. Dibwa immediately replied, "Don't worry. I'm a seasoned adventurer now." The scales emblem on El Palm's chest attracted the attention of many people. Each adventurer in the crowd began making private calculations. Dibwa muttered, "The atmosphere here is awful." Just then, someone approached to introduce himself. "Oh, some newcomers. You're from the Gayfer Machinist Guild, aren't you? It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Sudan, a rank E adventurer from the Janus Machinist Guild. El Palme Nadif, Imal Palma, a rank C adventure." Sudan was astonished. What, rank C? I thought only 1 circle and 2 circle magicians were allowed into this gate. How could someone at rank C enter? Before El Palm could answer, someone interrupted their conversation. "Excuse me, may I speak with him?" A woman in armor crossed her arms and frowned. "I have business with him." Sudan walked away, muttering, "So he's with those people. I've wasted my time." El Palm raised his eyes and studied his new partner. He recalled asking ABIs in the meeting room, "Why must I do this?" ABIs had replied, "Just follow your orders. Why do you ask so many questions? Our association will cooperate with the Sigma Knights in this expedition. These knights have a prestigious background and follow the ideals of Queen Sigma. Their strongest force, the Crimson Knights, is praised throughout the world as a symbol of strength and authority. They have recently begun taking an interest in dimensional gates. The other associations seized the gates' available slots before us, so we had no choice but to join forces with them. Even if they only send an amateur party, our chances of success will still rise considerably. They may have ulterior motives for approaching this gate, but cooperating with them isn't a bad option. Al Palma reluctantly replied, "You understand. It's only an alliance." ABIs then said thoughtfully, "I don't think it's that simple. Something about this feels suspicious." The female knight leading the group introduced herself. "My name is Kiri, and I lead the Sigma Knights amateur party. You should know your place. Don't get the wrong idea merely because we've exchanged a few words. I don't want unnecessary trouble, so remain silent and follow my orders." Dibwa immediately became irritated. "What's with that damned attitude?" Kiri asked. "Are you two the only party sent by the Gayfer Machinist Guild?" El Palme Nadif. "That's right." She sighed. Has the Gayfer Guild already given up? As time passed, the exceptional participants in this expedition gradually appeared. The Dyke Machinists Guild sent Crocus's party, while the Media Machinists Guild sent Cuban's party. Dibor realized that they were all elite adventurers from different associations. The atmosphere changed completely. Then another party attracted everyone's attention. The Goldrick Machinist Guild had sent the 3 Natasha sisters as its representatives. The emblems on their chests gleamed brightly. Kiri remarked with disgust, "They look so arrogant." Just then, a man spoke loudly. "Greetings, everyone. My name is Lonko. I was assigned to guard this location and assist anyone who escapes through the exit. Your supervisors have undoubtedly already briefed you about the gate, but I will repeat the rules. Any legendary grade item obtained inside the gate will not belong to you under any circumstances. Ownership belongs to the association employing you. Naturally, your association will grant you an appropriate reward afterward. You should be grateful that you are permitted to keep the magic stones. One more thing, if any of you attempt to appropriate the supplies for yourselves, you will have to face my party of rank B adventurers." The symbol on Lonko's hand startled Dibwa. He's a 5-circle magician. His entire party consists of 5-circle magicians. Lonko simply concluded, "That is all. I wish everyone a safe journey." Standing before the gate, Kiri repeated, "Follow me." I'll lead the way. I'm the only one capable of successfully clearing this gate. Kiri's arrogant words irritated Dibwa. Does she have something wrong with her head? Do we really have to cooperate with her? El Palm was in no mood to answer. His thoughts were focused entirely on the gate before him. All my efforts until now have been for the sake of entering this gate, a gate I never entered, even in my previous life. But I must succeed. That chain of events is finally beginning. Following close behind, Dibwa declared, even if they beg us in tears, I won't help them. As the adventurers were transported, the gate emitted a red light. All the adventurers landed in an endless field of grass. The parties quickly regrouped. Everyone, follow me. Dibwa gawked at their surroundings. Why is the grass so tall? Kiri appeared directly behind him. Do you think we came here to admire the scenery? Hurry up. Dibwa struggled to suppress his anger. Brother, are you really going to let her treat us like this? Why should we put up with them? But when he turned around, he saw El Palm lying flat on the ground. What are you doing? Why are you lying face down? The thing El Palm had been waiting for soon arrived. In the distance, a herd of monsters rapidly approached the adventurers, raising a cloud of dust. Someone spotted them and shouted, "That sound! It's a herd of ribbon pigs. Nearly 1,000 of them are coming." Kiri loudly ordered, "What are you waiting for? Spread out and draw their attention. Hurry, some of the parties haven't entered yet." Several adventurers protested. Isn't there an unwritten rule that participating parties shouldn't interfere with one another right away? Nevertheless, everyone split up and began running. "El Nido party, come with us. We'll go this way." By the time the pigs arrived, the adventurers had scattered in different directions. The herd immediately broke into smaller groups to pursue them. Kiri nodded in satisfaction. "Good. Head toward the forest. There are plenty of obstacles there." "Yes, we'll regroup there." One knight reported, "Miss Kiri, we have a problem. We've lost track of the Gayfer guild members." Kiri was alarmed. "What?" Meanwhile, El Palm's fifth party was leisurely enjoying the fresh air. "How refreshing. It looks like we can relax now. But how did you know that the ribbon pigs would attack?" El Palm replied, "Experience. On a vast grassland like this, monsters often move in large herds. Ribbon pigs average 2 meters in length. They're extremely aggressive and usually travel in groups, numbering from hundreds to thousands." The other parties knew that the herd would be difficult to fight, though not impossible to defeat. They simply didn't want to waste their strength at the beginning, so they divided the herd into smaller groups. From this point onward, we won't know what kind of monster will appear next. This is certainly not the end. The expedition into the 100-person gate in Sleepywood had ended in failure in El Palm's previous life, with every participating adventurer dying. Seeing him distracted, Dibwa asked, "What are you thinking about?" At that moment, Dibwa accidentally stepped on a length of rope. When he looked up, a wall of sharpened wooden stakes came crashing down toward his head. "What in the world is this?" Fortunately, El Palm quickly pulled him back. "A trap." Dibwa cursed angrily. "Who put these things here?" At the same time, many other adventurers throughout the gate were triggering similar traps. A wooden stake 3 times the size of a human body shot out. A powerful slash flashed through the air, and an adventurer wielding a thin sword effortlessly sliced the stake apart. He snorted coldly. "Pathetic." The other members reported, "We've disarmed all the traps. That was the last one." The masked man warned, "Don't lower your guard, Babel." Crocus, who wore the Dyke Guild emblem, examined the scattered traps. Although they're crudely made, they're extremely dangerous. They even imitate human hunting methods. That means they weren't made by ordinary monsters. If a monster possesses this level of intelligence, it must be a hobgoblin. They're extremely troublesome, so they may be this gate's primary monsters. We had already suspected as much. This gate is remarkably difficult. Unless you're an adventurer on my level, you'll die here without accomplishing anything. With that, he turned around. "I'll find the best way forward. Follow me." The moment Babel took a step, Crocus sensed that something was wrong. "Hey, watch out. Don't let your guard down." Before he could finish speaking, only Babel's headless body remained. At the same time, a powerful force killed the rest of his companions. In the end, Crocus could only utter, "What the hell?" before suffering the same fate as Babel. His vision spun as his head rolled across the ground. The last thing he saw before his life ended was the dangerous smile of another human. "Idiot, you kept babbling as if you knew everything." Elsewhere in the grasslands, an adventurer was acting alone. Whoever used the ribbon pigs to draw everyone's attention at the entrance. I don't know whose idea it was, but it made my work much easier. Since everything is proceeding smoothly, I should act now. He then groaned wearily. "How troublesome, but I'm almost out of time, so it can't be helped." Shall we begin? He rose and prepared to deal with the three Natasha sisters. All three women were completely immobilized. One of the sisters desperately tried to move her hand. The adventurer, holding the staff, shook his head. Struggling is useless. That's how the spell works. Its effects won't wear off for at least 30 minutes. The woman trembled as she asked, "Why are you doing this?" He looked impressed. "Amazing. You can still speak in that condition." "That's exactly what I expected from Natasha." He brutally thrust his staff into her body and activated his magic. "You're too dangerous, so I'll kill you first." Watching their sister die before their eyes, the other two could not hold back their tears. The man merely stroked his chin indifferently. "That's a difficult question. Why am I doing this?" Suddenly, an idea occurred to him. He turned his hand, revealing the blazing staff he held. Would this explanation make it easier to understand? A crazed expression appeared on his face before he finished off the remaining two women. It's what all black magicians do. Fire arrow. With that single spell, he blasted them both to pieces. Looking at the mangled remains scattered across the ground, he remarked, their endings were no better than the others. "I'd really like to rest now." Everything had been part of a grand plan. Earlier, a mysterious figure had summoned William. He knelt respectfully on the ground and awaited his orders. "Yes, I'm listening." The figure's voice echoed in his ears. "I have waited a long time for this day. We hid from their eyes, concealed our identities, and took root deep within the association, gradually spreading our power and influence. The time is finally ripe," William replied. "I will not disappoint you." The mysterious figure handed him a glowing feather. "Take it. This is a gift bestowed by our master. Failure will not be tolerated." William carefully pinned the feather to his chest and thought, "I must not let its light go out." Leaning on his staff, he continued onward. "I suppose there's no other choice. It seems I'll have to exert myself a little more." El Palm led Dibwa to the gates of a fortress where 10 hobgoblins were already waiting. They paced back and forth with terrifying expressions. The sight immediately horrified Dibwa. What's going on?" Dibwa hurriedly turned to El Palm and demanded an explanation. "Are you saying all of them are bosses?" El Palme Kamni Nadif. "I'm certain I explained at the beginning that only some of them were bosses." El Palm then explained in great detail. Whether they're bosses or not makes little difference. In addition to their natural strength, they're extremely vicious. Facing even one of them carries considerable risk. Moreover, they appear to have collected equipment from dead adventurers as trophies, making them even harder to fight. Some variants may be able to use the abilities contained within those items. Deebwa's confidence shattered upon hearing that, and he immediately confronted El Palm. "What is that supposed to mean?" "They're practically an entire army of adventurers. So, just the two of you are going to fight them?" El Palme Nadif. "You catch on quickly, Shorty." "Good." El Palm's nonchalant attitude only made Dibwa's thoughts spiral further out of control. Terrified, he protested, "No. What are you talking about? I'm trying to tell you that the two of us can't possibly do this alone. We need to join forces with Kiki, Kiri, or whoever." El Palm looked even more puzzled. "Why? Weren't you the one who wanted to split up and not work with them?" Dibwa quickly explained. "That was because I didn't know about these monsters. Either way, the two of us can't handle them alone." After hearing the whole story, El Palm paused to consider their options. No one knew what he was planning, but a moment later, Dibwa had already tripped one of the hobgoblins, separating it from the group. A battle immediately broke out. Dibwa was dissatisfied, but there was nothing he could do except complain. "Seriously? He did that on purpose, didn't he? I never said I planned to take them all on by myself." The hobgoblin, attacked without warning, became furious and turned to punch its opponent. Dibwa planted his weapon against the ground, vaulted over the monster's head, and landed perfectly. He and the hobgoblin continued trading blows, evenly matched as one attacked and the other defended. However, the monster roared at the top of its lungs with every strike, irritating Dibwa to no end. Finally, losing his temper, Dibwa struck it squarely in the mouth and told it to shut up. Taking advantage of an opening, he attacked its leg and knocked it flat on its back. Dibwa then moved in for the finishing blow. Unexpectedly, the hobgoblin still had enough strength to dodge. After regaining its balance, it punched Dibwa in the chest, sending him flying backward into a tree. The hobgoblin then grabbed Dibwa by the head and spun him around. Refusing to give up, Dibwa drove his weapon through its palm, forcing the monster to release him in pain. The two continued their fierce battle until nightfall before a victor finally emerged. The hobgoblin lay sprawled in a pool of blood, while Dibwa was in equally terrible condition. Only then did El Palm finally show himself. Dibwa immediately complained, "I thought you were going to help me." El Palm calmly replied that he had faith in Dibwa's abilities. "You looked capable of handling alone. Thanks to that, you now know they aren't impossible to defeat." Dibwa refused to accept that explanation and immediately protested. "What goes on inside that head of yours? I'm becoming more suspicious of this mission by the minute. If there's an entire army of those things." Dibwa suddenly fell silent when something came into view. Before them lay the devastated remains of an entire force. The dead had been torn apart, their bodies no longer whole. What happened here? Aren't they all members of the Sigma Knights? What the hell happened? Dibwa suddenly heard a human groaning. Realizing that someone was still alive, he hurried over to check on him. El Palm called out loudly, "What happened here? Did the hobgoblins attack you?" The orange-haired man gritted his teeth and emphasized every word. "The hobgoblins had nothing to do with it. Some bastards did this." Meanwhile, ABI's sat smoking in his office while considering several possibilities. The first was the appearance of opportunists. Only a limited number of people could enter these unexplored gates. Their objective would be to gather information and attack the other adventurers. Since such a gate disappeared once the survivors escaped, all evidence of their crimes would vanish along with it. However, this incident would likely become a battle with no true victor. After all, they would still have to clear this difficult gate while exhausted and with only a handful of people remaining. Even if they somehow cleared it and returned with a unique item, they would inevitably arouse the suspicions of those waiting outside. Having gathered all the available information, ABIs remained troubled by one possibility. Could they ultimately be elite agents from the merchant guilds? No, that's impossible. Even if that were their objective, if word somehow reached the outside world, they would end up at war with the other merchant guilds. No merchant guild would take such a dangerous gamble. Does this mean there is some greater purpose behind it? Leaving Abiz's concerns aside, the scene returned to El Palm's group. After hearing the orange-haired man's story, Dibwa could not help thinking of a particular name. Could it have been? Before he could finish, the orange-haired man immediately confirmed it. "I don't think I saw that woman among the bodies." He slammed his fist into the ground, trembling as he blamed himself. "Damn it, this is all my fault. Who could have imagined she was the traitor among us?" But why would Kiri? Despite everything the man had said, El Palm still did not understand why she would betray them when she herself was a member of the Sigma Knights. Dibwa could not understand it either, no matter how hard he thought. The orange-haired man then revealed another fact. Looking back, the order she gave at the gate's entrance may also have been part of her plan. Before finishing everyone here, she personally declared that she was a disciple of the Black Magician. The moment they heard that name, both Dibwa and El Palm were shocked. To explain the Black Magician's significance, the story began 800 years earlier. He was a transcendent being who, alongside his many disciples, threatened Maple World. To stop him, the 6 heroes joined forces against him, and the ensuing battle placed the Black Magician and his forces at a complete disadvantage. When both the Black Magician and the 6 heroes were sealed away, his army of disciples became trapped in the chaos. The Allied forces then counterattacked and eradicated every last disciple of the Black Magician. Everyone in Maple World knew that version of history. That was why neither of them could believe the claim that the Black Magician still had disciples. El Palm had no intention of standing around and waiting. This is no longer the time to worry about those monsters. We need to find her. Are you coming with us? You should prepare yourself to fight her when we meet. Pitt naturally wanted to go and immediately agreed. Meanwhile, Kiri, the woman they had just been discussing, was sprinting desperately through the forest in search of an exit. However, someone blocked her path. "Welcome. I've been waiting for you, Kiri." She had no idea where these lunatics who enjoyed harassing women had come from. "So you're the one who killed those ribbon pigs. Thanks to everyone splitting up, we were able to continue our plan without any trouble. Now we can take our time finishing the job. By the way, did you receive the gift we sent you?" They rambled on at length, but Kiri had no idea who they were. She quickly drew her sword and demanded that they explain themselves while remaining ready to defend herself. El Palm's group had already set out. Dibwa was assigned to support the wounded orange-haired man. "If your injuries are too severe, we can slow down. He's already scouting ahead, anyway." "Thank you, but I'm fine," Dibwa reassured him. Don't worry. Our boss is excellent at tracking people. I'm sure we'll find her soon. Pittman gave a meaningful smile. Understand. That's good. He then discreetly readied the weapon in his hand, clearly plotting something. Elsewhere, Kiri's battle against the bandits shook the forest. Her powerful techniques earned William's admiration. Wonderful, or should I say, exactly what one would expect from the Sigma Knights training captain. I wonder how much longer she can hold out. No longer willing to toy with such inferior opponents, Kiri immediately unleashed Rising Sunday. Her opponent was still mocking her flashy display when the attack struck him. Kiri followed with Sun Slash before he could defend himself, cutting his body into several pieces that scattered across the ground. After eliminating one enemy, Kiri turned toward the others and coldly demanded, "Tell me your objective if you don't want to die here." Seeing his subordinate so easily killed by a woman, and then hearing her challenge, infuriated the blue-haired man. He immediately ordered the others to kill her, resulting in 3 large, muscular men ganging up on one woman. Before Kiri even had to lift a finger, however, a mysterious helper appeared. With one simple strike, he sliced one of the men's bodies in half. Kiri stared in astonishment when she recognized Dibwa. The story then returned to the forest moments earlier, when Dibwa had still been supporting Pittman while searching for Kiri. The instant Dibwa lowered his guard, Pittman nearly ambushed and killed him. Fortunately, el Paume intervened. No one could have imagined that the man who had seemed so pitiful was actually a traitor who had planned to murder Dibwa. El Palm, however, had never trusted him. He had simply waited for Pittman to make his move, then severed his arm with a single strike, causing his agonized scream to echo throughout the forest. Dibwa stood frozen, staring blankly at the scene. El Palm approached the orange-haired man and said, "Just as I expected. How disgusting. Sorry to disappoint you, but trusting people isn't one of my habits." After saying that, El Palm swiftly ended his life. Back in the present, Dibwa's unexpected arrival left William confused. Saline hesitantly warned him, "Lord William, he's from the Gayfer Machinists Guild. If he's still alive, then." William was no fool. Seeing Dibwa alive and unharmed, he immediately realized that the coward Pittman had failed. William cursed his own decision. It was a mistake to entrust that task to someone like Pittman. Returning to the matter at hand, William and his trusted subordinates had no choice but to confront these 2 powerful opponents themselves. Kiri warned Dibwa to be careful, but he remained completely unconcerned. Dibwa simply assumed they were perverts who had seen Kiri alone and planned to assault her. When Kiri realized what he was thinking, she was utterly exasperated. Without waiting any longer, the enemies charged into close combat. Dibwa and Kiri divided up their opponents in an instant. "You can handle at least one of them, right? I'll take the rest." Kiri warned him not to underestimate them. The battle officially began when Sudan attacked Dibwa. Dibwa easily countered the minor technique, but before it was over, the blonde man blasted him in the face with magic. Dibwa barely dodged it, but he failed to notice someone ambushing him from behind. By the time Dibwa saw William, the attack had already drawn blood. Such a minor wound meant little to him, but his arrogant attitude irritated William, who resolved to knock him out. William's attack closed in on Dibwa's head, yet Dibwa remained perfectly calm. Even Kiri, watching from the side, had to shout at him, "You idiot, what are you doing?" Dibwa glanced over and calmly replied, "What do you think I'm doing? I'm obviously playing with him." Sure enough, one lightning-fast strike sent William flying. One of William's men changed targets to avenge his leader, only to be sent flying as well. No matter what they tried, they could not overpower Dibwa. On the other side, Kiri had also severely wounded Sudan. Kiri kicked him dozens of meters away and then mocked them. "And you call yourselves elites?" Humiliated by everything that had happened, William finally lost his temper and prepared his strongest spell. "It seems I can't stand back any longer. This is as far as you go. We've already wasted too much time." Dibwa immediately recognized the spell as Fire Arrow, but it was several times faster than El Palm's. Dibwa could only stare wide-eyed, unable to figure out how to defend himself. The Fire Arrow struck the ground, producing an earth-shaking explosion. William and his subordinates laughed triumphantly. "You let your guard down because you thought it was an ordinary fire arrow, didn't you? Mine is on an entirely different level. Even if you had known, you couldn't have dodged it. It's over. Let's move on and clear the rest of the dungeon." Their celebration did not last long. As the flames and smoke dispersed, El Palm somehow appeared before them. Moreover, he had blocked the fire arrow and saved both Dibwa and Kiri. William could not believe his eyes. How could someone have stopped his unique spell so easily? The first thing El Palm said was, "Another guest is coming. You bastards had better watch out." He pointed toward the bushes. Sure enough, several seconds later, a gigantic ribbon pig charged straight toward William's group, beginning an entertaining chase. The ribbon pigs kept attacking William and his men, forcing them into an exhausting battle before they finally killed the creatures. I can't believe they used those pigs to escape. William quickly gathered his subordinates and immediately pursued El Palm's group. If those three made it through the gate, the consequences would become extremely troublesome. They quickly discovered the trio's tracks. Before setting out, William instructed his subordinates, "If you encounter the man in the cloak, just stall him and keep him occupied. We'll deal with him." Confused, Vero replied, "My lord, I don't think you need to face him alone. If I may say so, I don't believe he's merely some insignificant weakling." William sneered, "Are you worried about me? Don't you know? There's no one inside this gate stronger than I am." Meanwhile, Dibwa was delighted that El Palm's group had escaped. He was also convinced that the ribbon pigs would kill their pursuers. However, El Palm immediately shattered that hope. They aren't weak enough to be killed so easily. And watch where you're stepping. Have you forgotten about all the traps? He then added, "Those bastards are stronger than I am." That single statement left Dibwa frozen in disbelief. What? El Palm recalled the earlier fire arrow. In truth, it had already knocked Dibwa down. El Palm had arrived just in time and fired his own fire arrow to counter it, narrowly preventing disaster. But that exchange had also allowed El Palm to realize something. His own fire arrow should at least have deflected the other spell's trajectory, yet William's fire arrow had remained completely unaffected. Seeing the tense expression on his boss's face, Dibwa let out an awkward laugh, still unable to believe what he had just heard. "Come on, stronger than you? You're joking, right?" El Palm remained serious. "Why would I joke about that?" Only then did Dibwa grasp the truth. "So you really did run away?" El Palm immediately nodded. He then rolled up his sleeve and revealed the truth to Dibwa. "It appears my circles can no longer grow any denser. A mana circle's density is directly proportional to the speed and power of its magic. Right now, I have reached the absolute limit of the second circle. Logically, he and I should be equally powerful, or I should even be stronger. But his power is simply absurd. To enter this red-level gate, he must also possess only 2 circles. He must know and use some secret method that enhances his strength. He may very well be the strongest person inside this gate." Dibwa's expression twisted further with every word. This difficult truth only made him more anxious. "Then what should we do? Should we keep using the monsters against them, like before?" El Palm shook his head, immediately rejecting the reckless idea. "Hobgoblins are entirely different from ribbon pigs. The hobgoblins are intelligent enough to recognize the conflict between us and those bastards. They could then exploit it and turn it against us." Their endless discussion was doing nothing to help the situation, so Kiri interrupted them. "Wait, what the hell are you thinking? Don't you understand what's happening? A disciple of the Black Magician has infiltrated the Sigma Knights. This is a grave matter involving the fate of all Maple World." Kiri then gave her own opinion. "We need to return immediately. Clearing this gate is no longer necessary." Although Kiri said that aloud, she was clearly unwilling to accept it. The hand gripping her sword trembled violently. It must have taken everything she had to voice that decision. El Palm, however, indifferently dismissed her, surprising even Dibwa. His attitude caused anger to flare within Kiri. "I suppose I shouldn't have expected anything more from a former slave. Is your only concern still the scraps you can collect after clearing the gate?" El Palm frowned and began presenting his incisive argument, leaving her no choice but to listen in silence. "Even if you report this information after leaving, what happens next? Do you think that alone will be enough to eradicate them? Don't underestimate them. The Black Magician's disciples have remained hidden and planted their roots deep within Maple World for countless centuries. Revealing their return will produce only one result. They will cut off their unnecessary tails and burrow even deeper underground. If they choose never to appear again, no one will be able to find them. They will remain a plague ravaging this world, only from somewhere no one can interfere with them." Tired of his lengthy lengthy speech without a solution. Kiri stormed forward, seized El Palm by the collar, and demanded, "You keep telling me we can't do this or that. So what exactly do you want us to do? Stop spouting nonsense if you don't have a solution either. They're hunting us. We need to escape before they catch up." Despite Kiri shouting mercilessly in his face, El Palm calmly replied, "Don't worry. We'll show them who the real prey is." Meanwhile, William's group hurriedly followed the trail left by El Palm and the other two. Sudan led the chase, moving faster and more aggressively than anyone else. "Find them quickly. If they really escape, our lives will." Before he could finish, their opponent suddenly appeared. Dibwa greeted Sudan enthusiastically, a broad smile on his face. "Hello." The sudden ambush caught Sudan off guard, but he still dodged Dibwa's attack with ease. Seeing his comrade in danger and his prey reappear, Vero eagerly charged into battle. "You idiot! You've come here to die. I'll finish you off this time." The moment Vero finished speaking, Sudan punched him without mercy. A powerful enemy was one thing, but a foolish ally was far worse. From a distance, Kiri watched the two men fight while freeing herself from the ropes binding her. The battle was not over yet. Taking advantage of Sudan's distraction, Dibwa slammed his pole arm into Sudan. Sudan caught Dibwa's weapon in an instant, then drew his sword and tried to stab him to death. However, Dibwa easily dodged the attack. He then answered Sudan with a crushing punch. Dibwa released his weapon and began pummeling his opponent relentlessly. After landing a barrage of punches, Dibwa kicked Sudan in the stomach. The beating continued for several minutes. Witnessing it, Saline could only stare blankly. What the hell is happening? Kiri soon appeared before her. Without giving Saline a chance to retaliate, Kiri repeatedly struck her in the face. "Focus on me, you piece of trash. I'm just as annoyed about having to deal with you." While their subordinates fought, William, their leader, remained completely composed. But he was not the only one. "It seems they've already started fighting. I am curious. Were you waiting for me?" El Palm's appearance provided the answer. The two strongest fighters in the area were about to face each other in a decisive duel. Both men unleashed their strongest spells. Fire Arrow. El Palm charged forward at astonishing speed and cast Fire Arrow. William grinned viciously. "Excellent." As soon as he spoke, a spark flashed. William instinctively stepped back. Across from him, clouds of smoke and dust billowed into the air. Something suddenly flew straight at him. William was taken aback. "A stone? Is that all you can do?" He quickly used Fire Arrow to blast the stone away. Roaring flames filled the area as William arrogantly held up his weapon and stared at El Palm. "You just neutralized that attack. What an unexpected result. You shouldn't have enough power to stop it. What did you do?" El Palm coldly refused to answer. William grew irritated. "So you're not much of a talker. Fine, it doesn't matter. We can hardly have a conversation while fighting. I'll discover the answer myself." With that, he launched another spell. Without wasting any words, El Palm immediately countered with Fire Spear. William was astonished. "What is this?" "He's using psychokinesis to rotate his own Fire Arrow. It's piercing through my spell like a drill. I've never heard of anyone using it this way before." A thunderous explosion rang out. William had truly witnessed something extraordinary. "Unbelievable. You used psychokinesis to enhance your spell. Now I understand. You're one of those people they call geniuses, aren't you? The kind of person I hate most. Why don't we enjoy this opportunity a little longer? Show me what else you can do." William seemed to have gone mad as he recklessly attacked El Palm. A massive boulder came crashing down. William dodged it while laughing wildly. "What are you doing? Is running away all you can think of? Since when did you?" Before he could finish, El Palm struck, silencing him with a single blow. William tumbled across the ground several times before finally losing his temper. "I'm done playing with you." The instant he finished speaking, an arrow shot toward El Palm. El Palm immediately countered with Fire Spear, whose flames consumed William's spell. William continued laughing like a madman. "You finally used both of your spells, haven't you?" As if he had been waiting for this moment, William activated his ring. Poison Breath. El Palm was surprised when the tiny ring released a cloud of poison that engulfed the entire area. "Poison Breath is powerful, but I'm defenseless while casting it. Your attributes are psychokinesis and fire, correct? If I take advantage of Fire Arrow's cooldown, I can prevent you from attacking. Now you won't be able to move for 30 minutes. My Fire Arrow is also on cooldown, so forgive me for rudely finishing you off with a dagger." William smugly drew his knife. "Now we finally reached my favorite moment. I'm so curious that I can't wait any longer. I want to see the despair on your face. Are you trembling? Or are you crying? Once again, El Palm acted to stop his pointless rambling. William barely saw him move before taking a punch directly to the face. Blood sprayed from William's mouth, and he collapsed after a single blow. The scene shifted to Ibiru. How did he do that? Tell me quickly. Tell me how he resisted the raging poison mushroom's poison. Your boss isn't here, so you can tell me, can't you? I'll even buy your drinks, so explain it to me. Debo laughed. What would you gain from knowing? Even if I told you, you wouldn't be able to imitate it. I think he calls it vacuum. He uses psychokinesis to draw in all the air and then seals it away. Just when I thought that damn poison mushroom was about to kill me, he sucked up all the poison that had spread throughout that enormous area. That's all there is to it, so it wasn't much of an explanation. But I told you, so you're buying the drinks today. Ibira froze. What the hell? Isn't that ability far too extraordinary? Debor replied proudly. I told you my boss is unbelievably strong. Back in El Palm's battle, he continued beating William to a pulp. Every punch was delivered with tremendous force, leaving William in too much pain to speak. Another blow sent him flying far away. El Palm retrieved his weapon and prepared to deliver the finishing blow. William crashed hard against a tree trunk, and when he opened his eyes, the deadly attack was already before him. William desperately tried to escape, but he could not. El Palm had already taken position. He raised his bow and fired a vicious flaming arrow. William could only stare in despair as the arrow pierced one of his arms and severed it completely. William screamed in agony. His ring shone once more and released another wave of poison. You bastard! El Palm calmly listened to him curse, then gently extended his hand into the empty air. El Palm thought, is he trying another trick? Someone capable of pretending to be insane, just as I did, must be aiming for something. Since he can no longer use his poison, he must be trying to retrieve his staff. Go ahead and retrieve it. I'll finish you the instant you do. Flames erupted as El Palm attacked William. He could not deny that William was tenacious. William charged forward. You bastard! I'll cut you into 100 pieces. This time, William was the one who cast the spell. El Palme sufre da considerable. I let my guard down. I never expected him to still have a trump card, Fireball. Before my regression, I would never have made a mistake like this. I became too arrogant. For a moment, El Palm remained motionless while everyone rushed toward him. Debwa saw what had happened and stared in shock. Boss! After swiftly defeating her opponent, Kiri warned Debwa, stop wasting time and finish him. That mage isn't someone El Palm can handle alone. Debwa snapped, I'm already doing it. Stop ordering me around. Just as Debwa struck his opponent hard enough to make him spit blood, a rapid succession of footsteps approached. A horde of goblins came pouring toward them. Kiri raised her sword. Are those blue goblins? We need to dispose of them quickly. Debwa cursed. Damn it, why do these things keep appearing? Don't underestimate them. They won't be easy to defeat. Besides, there's one among them that looks especially strange. Back at El Palm's battlefield, William searched for him. Did that bastard really die? Suddenly, William coughed up blood, splattering it across the ground. He laughed. Fine, you have my recognition. You're not bad at all. I never expected you to push me this far. I suppose I should have asked your name before killing you. Just as William became convinced El Palm was dead, a voice rang out. El Palme. William's eyes widened. Impossible. El Palm stepped into view. Remember it well, because it's the last name you'll ever hear. William regained his composure and laughed. You're one stubborn bastard, but it's pointless. No matter how dramatic an entrance you make, you can't escape. I already know the limits of your power. El Palme de Plaith. You're right. I've abandoned my previous plan. Defeating you with only 2 mana circles is impossible. William stared at the object El Palm had produced. A magic stone? William burst into laughter. You've lost your mind, haven't you? Is that stone your last hope? Are you planning to absorb it and form another mana circle? You fool. Absorbing another magic stone won't give you an additional circle. What you need is enlightenment gained through countless experiences. El Palm did not deny it. Enlightenment and experience. While William was still confused, El Palm's arm began to glow. You don't need to worry. Those are 2 things I have never lacked. William flew into a rage. You put on another act to deceive me? El Palm calmly allowed him to charge, then drew his bow. Fire arrow. William countered El Palm's fire arrow with fireball. El Palm extended his hand, and William's fireball instantly disintegrated. William stared in horror as the arrow took aim directly at him. With no way left to evade, William watched the arrow fly straight toward his head. Flames erupted. El Palm waited in silence until nothing remained of William but ashes. I forgot to ask his name. Elsewhere, the goblin horde was still running rampant. Kiri supported Dibwa as they hid behind a tree, but she suddenly felt uneasy. Only moments earlier, Dibwa had still been fighting ferociously. She watched in bewilderment as he continuously struck down 16 goblins. How is he defeating those monsters so easily? Dibwa laughed. This is a piece of cake. I can read you like a book, you bastard. 18. A goblin tried to punch him, but Dibwa swiftly dodged and struck on the head. At that moment, a fireball was launched. The goblin grinned with delight. Kiri became wary. That's a fire orb. How can a monster cast that spell? A monster capable of using magical items is an unpredictable threat. Damn it, this situation is terrible. We may have no choice but to hide and regroup with El Palm. I hope he's still safe. After thinking for a moment, Kiri took Dibwa and fled. The goblins pursued them in a swarm, forcing her to stop and fight. With nowhere to put Dibwa down, Kiri tossed him into the air, fought off the goblins, and then caught him again. Damn pests. If they attack again, I can still handle them. Suddenly, flames erupted and blocked her path. Kiri spotted the leader. If only that hooded monster wouldn't interfere. She struggled to dodge one dangerous attack after another. The creature laughed in satisfaction. Then suddenly, amid the smoke, it sensed something. Dibwa had risen to his feet. Kiri stared at him in astonishment, his hair completely disheveled. Without saying a word, Dibwa charged directly into the horde of goblins. He defeated them one after another, and not a single one escaped his weapon. Sensing the threat, the leader immediately launched a fireball. Kiri could not believe her eyes. Is he really only an apprentice warrior? As the flames were about to engulf him, Dibwa quickly knocked them aside. The impact hurled him backward, leaving him badly injured and his face covered in blood. Enraged, the monster began conjuring another fireball. Fearing for Dibwa's life, Kiri shouted, "Fall back. I'll fight it from now on." The attack it had just unleashed resembled a spiraling fire arrow. The monster's power could not be denied. It glared at them furiously. Its flame seemed powerful enough to incinerate the entire area. Suddenly, another force emerged and neutralized them. Kiri turned in astonishment. The newcomer was none other than El Palm. It seems I arrived in time. By then, Lonko had yawned for the 8th time. He had grown so bored that he put aside his sword and sat beside a tree, complaining. It's been 3 days, and there's still no news from them. I only wanted to earn some meso with an easy job after such a long break. But this mission is making me far too anxious. This kind of work doesn't suit me at all. From now on, I should refuse missions that involve guarding a base from afar. Lonko then noticed a crowd gathering in one area and curiously went to investigate. Only when he drew closer did he see that a massive cavity had been carved into the giant oak's trunk, while its upper branches had been inexplicably destroyed. Kai immediately shouted to his soldiers, "Is anyone there? Bring the bishop here immediately." Driven by curiosity, Lonko hurried over. "Kai, what happened? Report the situation to me immediately." "Lonko, we found several survivors. The gate has vanished, so the expedition must be over." What immediately caught Lonko's attention were the 3 badly wounded members of El Palm's party. After an unknown amount of time, El Palm gradually regained consciousness. He jolted awake and sat up. Lonko had guarded him while he was unconscious. "Listen carefully. From now on, do your best to answer my questions. Only the strongest members of the Merchant Guild participated in this expedition, yet the 3 of you from the Gayfer Guild were the only survivors. What exactly happened inside that gate?" El Palm's breathing gradually stabilized, though pain continued to torment his body. He calmly answered, "We were the only survivors. I suspected as much, but it seems I was right. Everyone else is dead." A priest continued healing El Palm. Lonko demanded that he answer properly unless he wanted to lose the life he had barely recovered. After hesitating for a moment, El Palm spoke again. "A demon. There was a demon inside." Lonko stared at him in disbelief. El Palm asked him for paper and a pen so he could draw what he had seen inside the gate. I don't know this demon's name, but whatever Lonko saw in the drawing made concern spread across his face. In the end, he left the tent so El Palm could rest and recover. Lonko entered the command tent to report the situation to his forces, where a heated argument soon erupted. A 100-person gate filled with the finest adventurers from the merchant guilds. Even if it was a 100-person gate, wasn't it only red level? You expect us to believe all those people were killed by monsters? Frankly, they couldn't possibly have been defeated inside a red level gate. Toriel was among them, and he was the representative of the Sky Merchant Guild. The man reacted so strongly because his cousin had also been assigned to the 5th Squad. Lonko then presented the sketch El Palm had drawn. It doesn't sound as though he was making it up. It appears this is the monster that attacked them, the boss of the 100-person gate. The image of the blue goblin immediately intrigued the captains. If it's a blue goblin, aren't there rumors that they can use tools? I heard they possess extremely high intelligence. If an entire horde gathers together, fighting them would be no different from facing a human army. 100 adventurers had to fight them? It certainly couldn't have been easy. Lord Franco, representative of the Golden Rich Merchant Guild, immediately objected. I refuse to accept this. It may have been difficult for the others, but there is no way our Natasha could have been defeated by that monster. What are you implying? Are you truly asking because you do not know? Franco replied sternly. Someone may be playing a trick on us. None of this makes any sense unless someone among them stabbed us in the back. We have no way of knowing what happened inside the gate, do we? I can easily imagine them changing their minds and plotting something sinister. Who knows whether this was accidental or deliberate? Come to think of it, all 3 survivors belonged to the same guild. ABI's had had enough of his baseless suspicions. Enough. You have spouted more than enough nonsense. Are you saying Gayfer betrayed everyone? According to the report, our people had only formed 3 mana circles, yet they survived when the others could not. Is that not proof enough? Franco frowned and raised his voice. Are you implying that the adventurers from our merchant guild were weaker than those from Gayfer? If the Gayfer guild had that much talent, it would not rank last among the 10 great merchant guilds. That is only because we're still growing. The rankings will change over time, so prepare to lose your position. It seemed the rivalry was far from over. Franco continued mockingly. If you're willing to go that far, then you must have evidence, correct? We did not obtain a single item from a gate in the first place. What possible motive would they have? Do you understand now? Kai temporarily set aside the merchant guild's quarrel and went with Lonko to see the only 3 survivors before they departed. Once their conversation was over, El Palm bowed. Then we will return. Thank you for treating our injuries. Be careful. Watching El Palm walk away, Kai asked Lonko, are you sure it is all right to let them leave like this? Everything is already over. After all, in the forest, the 3 of them followed a narrow trail back toward their guild. The sudden appearance of a snail made them freeze for several seconds. Kiri said, look at that. Did it really follow you? Remembering the tragedy inside the gate, Kiri had asked El Palm, what are you hesitating for? We eliminated the Black Magician's disciple and completely wiped out the Blue Goblins. Do we not simply need to throw away everything we obtained, injure one another, and then leave the gate? El Palm's expression grew serious. In his hands were 2 feathers that still glowed with flames. El Palm thought, that is indeed what I said. Defeat the boss and abandon its items. But the item it dropped was the Phoenix Feather. Merely possessing this item increased the destructive power of fire spells by 30%. Unlike other items whose effects could not stack, the Phoenix Feather's effects could be stacked. El Palm finally realized why every adventurer inside this gate had been wiped out in his previous life. One unexpected gift. I must take it with me at any cost. Seeing that El Palm intended to keep the Phoenix Feathers, Kiri warned him again. If we carry undeclared items out of the gate, we will be suspected of sabotaging the expedition. If I remember correctly, you were the one who brought that up. Stop being greedy and stick to the plan, especially since we already found an exit near the guard post. While the 2 argued, this snail appeared. It was known as an item-collecting snail. Unlike other snail monsters, it was not aggressive and had a habit of sniffing out and collecting up to 10 items. It also possessed a unique characteristic. The more items it stored, the larger its shell became. Remembering this, Elpalm picked it up and pulled the snail out of its shell. In his previous life, this creature had been discovered after the dimensional gates began opening. To Kiri's surprise, Elpalm retrieved the 2 phoenix feathers he had stored inside the shell. She grumbled, "So you managed to bring those out without being caught. How did you know how to use that snail?" Instead of making a fuss after leaving the gate, it was better to test which method would work, Elpalm replied. Kiri asked what came next in his plan now that they had done everything he requested. Elpalm told her not to worry. Those bastards infiltrated the Sigma Knights, so this information must remain absolutely secret. If anything goes wrong, they may conceal themselves even more deeply. They have probably arrived by now, so all we need to do is wait and see. The Janus Merchant Guild, the Media Organization, and the Dick Merchant Guild had all been annihilated. Bijou reported bitterly. They claimed the expedition failed because they were defeated by the boss monster, and that only 3 members of the Gayfer Guild barely managed to escape. Some people at the meeting suspected sabotage, but their suspicions were mainly directed at the merchant guilds, not us. Even so, no one was charged due to a lack of evidence. Although the mission failed, fortunately, our identities were not exposed. Please allow me to prepare for our next operation. Following a deafening clap of thunder, the mysterious figure spoke. You claim we were not exposed? Our plan was to eliminate every one of them and then conquer the boss. If so, those 3 survivors must have encountered William. Bijou hurriedly replied, but Elpalm's testimony made no mention of that. They have no reason to conceal such a thing, do they? Even if they did, they would never be able to single out our merchant guild because we scattered our members among every guild. They would have no reason to hide it, unless they realized that the mastermind behind this incident was not an ordinary merchant guild, but one of his disciples. What if their true objective was to identify the only people who know that the Black Magician's disciples have returned? Faced with this question, Bijou became extremely wary. Impossible. If what you say is true, then the situation is critical. We must eliminate the members we planted within the merchant guilds before their identities are exposed. A savage laugh rang out. An invitation. Is this their invitation? How interesting. Very well, I shall accept it. But next time, we should change the stage and make them our 101st guests. It was hell. Amid such extreme poverty, the people regarded even a humane life as a luxury. I watched my younger sister suffer from black blood disease, living in agony every single day. I cannot even protect the last member of my family from death. This place had always been hell to me, until a woman's voice reached my ears. You are still alive? It looks like you are having a difficult time. Would you like me to help? Go away. The young man reacted irritably, believing that she was merely pitying him. This was how Debois and Aaron first met on that merciless battlefield. On the journey ahead, Debois, Aaron, and the others formed a party to hunt monsters. Wherever they went, the monsters there became their unfortunate prey. Debois was usually the one who came up with their games, the most notable being a competition to see who could defeat monsters fastest. Everyone was quite enthusiastic about it. Excellent. I came in first. If only I had been 30 seconds faster. It looks like today's dishwashing duty has been decided. Debois, you are far too full of yourself. Few would have expected the only powerful woman in the group to chuckle. It appears we have dealt with all of them. Good work, everyone. Now let us go. Countless monsters defeated by Aaron lay piled beneath her feet. The corpses formed a mountain, making Debois extremely proud of his companion. 1 year, that was enough time to transform everything I valued. She was a heroine who seemed cold, but possessed a warm heart. She cleared the path ahead and protected everyone. She opened my eyes to the world. Naturally, my goal was to help her. Outside the cave, they shared several close moments together. Getting real combat experience from the abandoned mine to the Cave of Trials was incredible. Thank you, Debois. Embarrassed, Debois retorted, "Can you not see that I am in a bad mood?" Stop laughing. That is right, Debois. You did not manage to accomplish anything. You even call yourself Aaron's disciple. But if you want her acknowledgement, I think you need to do better. Aaron paid little attention to them. She turned to the girl, Shannon, and asked, "Are you certain this is the right way?" Relying on her innate gift, Shannon replied, "I think so. There are traces up ahead that my brother left behind. Something in the air has changed. Does a place like this truly exist beneath the El Nath Mountains?" Earlier, inside the cabin, Shannon had begged Aaron for a favor. The girl said, The abandoned mine in the El Nath Mountains is too dangerous. I cannot go alone, and no one else will accompany me. I need your strength to find my brother. Aaron immediately refused. You came to the wrong person. I do not handle personal matters like this. Bringing you along would serve no purpose. My policy is that bringing anyone below rank B will only become a hindrance. There is no guarantee that your brother is still alive. Find another adventurer. Seeing Shannon begin to sob in despair, Dibwa intervened. Aaron, forgive me for interrupting, but we are her last hope. Since that final incident, no adventurer has entered the Cave of Trials. In front of his senior, Dibwa made a promise. I want to help her. I will take responsibility for her safety, so please reconsider. That was why Shannon joined the expedition. The group passed the corpse of an elderly man. Aaron asked, "Is this Shannon's brother?" "No, that is not my brother." "I see. I suppose that can be considered fortunate. But why'd he die here?" "Those wounds do not appear to have been inflicted by monsters." "Precisely. He has been dead for a week." Suddenly, a gigantic shadow appeared overhead. It resembled an enormous boulder. The boulder dropped freely toward Aaron's group. Fortunately, everyone escaped with only minor injuries. As the smoke cleared, they discovered that the creature was Zakum, one of the monsters guarding the Cave of Trials. Aware of the danger, Dibwa told Shannon to retreat and hide behind him. Dibwa charged forward with the first strike, using it to intercept Zakum's attack. Aaron entered her combat stance and ordered Dibwa to attack the monster's left side with her. "Let's finish it quickly." The other two party members took responsibility for the right side. The four worked together seamlessly and defeated Zakum. Only Shannon, who had no ability to fight back, stared blankly at the passage behind the monster. Once Zakum had been defeated, Dibwa panted heavily from exhaustion. "Is that the damn thing everyone has been talking about?" At that moment, his companions realized that Shannon had disappeared. Only her familiar hairpin remained. It lay before the entrance to the cave, making Dibwa suspicious. "Do not tell me she went in there alone." "Damn it, why would she act on her own?" Relying on her senses, Aaron warned everyone, "Be careful. I can feel a powerful energy emanating from within." "You mean something is inside?" "I am not certain. I cannot identify it precisely, but there is definitely something extraordinarily powerful and dangerous in there." This made Dibwa even more worried about Shannon's safety, so he decided to enter. "I will bring her back. I am responsible for protecting her. The rest of you should remain here and stand guard." "Dibwa, calm down. Did you not hear what Aaron said?" Unexpectedly, Aaron said that she would accompany him. "Whatever is inside poses a threat to Maple World, so it is my responsibility to stop it." Beyond the cave entrance, they found a stream of burning lava. Shannon sat motionless beneath a tree on the other side of the bridge. Beside the girl lay the body of a man. Seeing Shannon sob, they could only assume that this was the brother she had been searching for all this time. Once again, Aaron sensed that something was wrong. Then she noticed Shannon's cryptic smile. The girl's expression instantly turned cold. "You followed me, Dibwa. I knew you would come in here because you were a good person, but I can never go back now, Dibwa." "Do you know what Zaka means?" "It means tree demon." Many people believe that the creature moving around earlier was Zakum, but in truth, only this gigantic tree is the real Zakum. Your true battle has not even begun. Dibwa could hardly believe this unfamiliar behavior. In his eyes, Shannon had always been an innocent young girl. He intended to run over and rescue her, but Aaron stopped him. She said, "Thank you for telling us that this is merely another form. Shannon, I will destroy this tree demon, so do not worry." Aaron gripped her polearm tightly and advanced. She also ordered Shannon to leave the dangerous area. "If this tree falls, you will be trapped in here. Or do you still have unfinished business, such as using your own brother as a sacrifice?" With her scheme exposed, Shannon no longer tried to hide it. She took a jewel from her brother's body. "Do you still not understand? It began the moment you entered this place. Zakum will possess you, and it will be able to control you completely." From behind, one of Dibwa's companions who had been guarding the entrance stabbed him while he was distracted. Aaron was also attacked, but fortunately, she noticed in time and dodged the blow. Dibwa slowly turned toward Miria. "What did you just do?" He stared in shock as both her eyes turned crimson. "You kill my friend. It is useless." To them, the two of you are targets who must be eliminated. Now let us bring everything to an end. We must do our best to complete this performance for the Black Magician. Miria unleashed a barrage of attacks, but Dibwa could only evade them. He wondered whether she had been possessed by Zakum. Aaron shouted, "Dibwa, stop being so cowardly and finish her." That is no longer Miria. Wake up. I know. Eren immediately poured more power into her polearm, then charged forward to eliminate her opponent. Dibwa alone continued to struggle with himself. After hesitating, he finally chose to fight and deal with the threat before him. After killing Miria, Dibwa blamed himself for leading his companions into a death trap. I'm sorry, Miria. At that moment, Miria suddenly regained consciousness. She gently touched Dibwa's cheek as she spoke her final words. Thank you. From now on, please take care of Eren. Meanwhile, Eren was fighting for her life against the gigantic tree demon with her polearm. So this is your true body. She unleashed strike after strike, but none left so much as a scratch on Zakum. Fortunately, Dibwa arrived in time. He told Eren, "Let us tear this giant apart together." The two then unleashed their strongest techniques together. However, before Zakum's overwhelming power, even Dibwa could not hold his ground. Just as Zakum was about to crush him, Shannon pulled out a dagger. "I offer my life to the Supreme One." In the next instant, Eren killed the girl with a single strike. Only that statue remains. It certainly will not allow us to destroy it easily. Suddenly, Dibwa began acting strangely. As his consciousness slowly faded, he said to Eren, "This is bad. You must kill me quickly. Hurry, before I do something I will regret." With no other choice, Eren tightened her grip on her polearm. "Forgive me, Dibwa." Memories of his first meeting with Eren flooded back. In the end, this is all for the best. Perhaps this is the punishment I deserve for entertaining such foolish thoughts. I am sorry, everyone. This happened because of me. Eren, hurry. In the next instant, Dibwa saw Dinev, his long-dead younger sister. What is happening? Who brought her here? Who was it? Was it you? How dare you? There was no time left. Eren approached him directly. "Do not worry. I will end this quickly." But by then, Dibwa had become completely lost in the illusion. Zakum had manipulated him into believing that Eren was responsible for his younger sister's death. Without thinking, Dibwa roared, "How dare you involve my sister in this? I will never forgive you." On one side was Zakum's million-ton strike, which could descend at any moment. On the other was Dibwa, who had completely lost control. Eren had to endure everything and face them both alone. The battle began, and the terrifying clashes of their two polearms shook the entire region. Eren took advantage of the moment Zakum attacked. She leaped into the air and severed the monster's arm, then circled behind Dibwa while he was distracted. After their clash, Eren's strike turned to ice and instantly severed the monster's arm. Amid the smoke, Eren charged forward once more. "Let's end this." Dibwa was standing atop Zakum. Using the demon's body as a springboard, he lunged at Eren. "Dibwa, you damned fool. This is my only chance. I can't stop now. I am Sore Gibo. I can't change the trajectory of my attack." Eren swung with all her might, cleaving through both Dibwa and the monster. The battle was over. Dibwa gradually regained consciousness. He sat up in pain. "What happened?" Eren's voice was now weak, completely unlike before. "You're finally awake. That's good. I thought I'd have to leave without getting to say goodbye." Then the most horrifying sight appeared. Eren lay motionless before Dibwa, with his familiar axe still embedded in her body. He was too stunned to speak. "Eren, did you?" "No, Adan. I told you to kill me." "Why did you?" "Dibwa, 800 years ago, No, we already failed once. I can no longer be the one who stops the Black Magician. But you can, Dibwa. You are extremely talented. When I was your age, I could never have compared to you." Dibwa screamed desperately at the cave entrance. "I can never become as strong as you. Never." Eren smiled gently. "Dibwa, I entrust Maple World to you. I know you will carry that burden well, because you are my one and only disciple." As Eren continued speaking, her consciousness gradually faded. "I'm a little tired. I'll sleep for a while." And that was how Eren departed forever. I had to tell her friends what had happened. In the end, I also left that place because without Eren, it was no longer where I belonged. It felt like hell. I had failed to protect the purpose I had finally found, failed to atone for my sins, and could not even fulfill the wish of the person I cherished most. When Dibwa awoke from the nightmare, he was still lying in his familiar bed. His younger sister, Dinev, was busy with a mountain of housework. She passed by and said, "You're awake? I was so worried because you stayed unconscious even though you weren't injured anywhere." "Oh, and you were talking in your sleep. Did you have a nightmare?" Dibwa abruptly sat up, bewildered. "A nightmare? I don't remember anything." Just then, someone knocked at the door, and Dinev hurried outside to greet the visitor. Come outside. Someone is here to see you. To see me? When Dibwa stepped outside, the visitor his sister had mentioned turned out to be El Palm. El Palm urged him, "Our schedule has been moved forward. Get ready to leave." "Can't I even have one day off, boss? Didn't you just get plenty of rest? Why has the plan changed this time?" "You'll probably have to lend me some money. 200,000 meso should be enough." "Absolutely not." Back in the present, ABI's was speaking with El Palm. "So they killed all 97 people, yet you managed to defeat them after increasing the number of your mana circles?" The more ABI's thought about it, the angrier he became. "What is this damned bastard planning?" ABI's angrily questioned him. "You don't know any other details? Let me be frank with you. You will only receive the reward for this gate if you provide me with enough information. You must need that money too, don't you?" Suddenly, El Palm reached into his pocket. "It appears I made a mistake. In that case," he pulled out a thick stack of money. "Let me repay my debt first." ABI's immediately thought, how did this brat earn so many meso? The amount we paid him doesn't even come close to that. It seems he has been secretly earning money all this time. Did he choose this exact moment because he intends to extract the greatest possible benefit from his information? ABI's then breathed a sigh of relief. "Congratulations. You are now a free adventurer. In that case, it seems we will have to sign a new contract. Tell me, how large a signing bonus do you want? I will do my best to meet your demand." After thinking for a few seconds, El Palm made his decision. 50 million meso. The amount immediately stunned ABI's. "What? 50 million? That is completely unreasonable. You're only a rank C adventurer. No one will pay you that much." El Palm promptly stood up. "Then our conversation ends here." Once they were outside, Dibwa curiously asked, "How did it go?" El Palm replied, "He rejected me after hearing the signing bonus I demanded." "How much did you ask for?" 50 million meso. Even Dibwa panicked upon hearing that figure. "What? 50 million? Boss, have you lost your mind? You always do things like this without telling me anything. But why have we come to a place like this?" "You know this place?" "How could I not? It's the slums. When I was young, there was nothing I wouldn't do to escape this place. Where I live now isn't particularly nice either, but compared to this district, it's paradise. I heard this used to be the liveliest district in Lith Harbor. It seems that is all in the past. Now, it is merely a den of thieves, perhaps the worst place on Victoria Island." Suddenly, someone was sent flying into the path ahead of them. Both men were bewildered by what had happened. The man who had been struck angrily thought, "I thought everything was going smoothly." Seeing this, Dibwa said, "It looks like a fight is about to break out. Let's take another route." Suddenly, the man shouted, "Bosses, why are you two so late? Those bastards suddenly accused me of stealing and attacked me. Please help me." Dibwa was dumbfounded. "What nonsense are you spouting, you bastard? Who would believe someone who looks like you is our subordinate?" Nevertheless, the others believed him. The old man immediately drew a knife and pointed it at them. "That underling of yours stole my property and sold it. If you two bosses pay me back on his behalf, I'll let all of you go. Hand over 3 million meso right now." The thief remained arrogant. "Did you personally see me steal it? Your eyes are so tiny. What could you possibly have seen? Stop accusing an innocent man and get lost." Old geezer, enraged by the challenge, the old man cursed him. "You brat, you must have a death wish." However, El Palm unexpectedly threw 3 bundles of money into the man's face. 3 million meso, right? "I've paid you, so get lost." Dibwa was furious. "Why, boss? Why'd you do that?" El Palm glanced aside and called out, "Ralph, come with me." A short while later, in a secluded alley, Ralph asked in surprise, "You mean you came here to recruit me? What about the money?" El Palm calmly replied, "I have none left. Those bundles from earlier were everything I had." Ralph was astonished. "May I ask who you work for?" "No one." "Are you joking? Then what reason do I have to join your party?" Dibwa immediately shouted in anger, "You bastard, give back the 3 million meso we just paid for you." Ralph laughed mockingly. "That 3 million? Did I ask you two to pay it for me? You acted on your own without discussing anything with me. Besides, if you came all the way here to recruit me, you must already know about my abilities. In that case, you should pay me a proper salary. I'll give you a special discount and join your party for 3 million meso." Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by someone. "Please forgive the interruption. My name is Biju, and I am from the Candia Merchant Guild. May I ask whether El Palm is here?" El Palm's interest was immediately piqued, and he turned around. That would be me. Biju approached him. It is a pleasure to meet you. Truthfully, I would have preferred not to meet you in such a dreadful place, but circumstances did not allow otherwise. Please forgive me. The Canea Merchant Guild highly values your abilities. Since you successfully conquered the 100-person gate, I will be direct despite the abruptness of our offer. We wish to recruit your party. Of course, you will first undergo a simple gate conquest test. We will pay 3 million meso in advance. Once you pass the test, we will give you a signing bonus of 50 million meso. Would you like to join us? El Palm smiled with satisfaction. Before leaving, Biju reminded him, the conquest will take place in 3 days. I wish you the best of luck. Debo was delighted by her offer. What an unexpected windfall, boss. Just then, El Palm tossed the 3 bundles of money to Ralph. That is the amount you demanded. The contract will last 15 days. Once we successfully conquer the gate, I will give you another 7 million meso. Debo stared at him in disbelief. Did you eat something strange today? You intend to give someone like him 10 million meso? Let's go. We'll be late for our next appointment. What? There's still somewhere else we have to go. A short while later, they arrived at their destination. The person El Palm had mentioned was none other than Kiri. Debo was alarmed. Boss, why is this noisy woman here? Hearing him, she snapped, be quiet. I only came to fulfill my promise. Sometime later, El Palm's party assembled at the site of the conquest. What a beautiful day to conquer a gate. There were 5 parties and 50 people in total. This should be enough to conquer it, right? Ralph complained irritably. I have to bring these useless people with me again? This had better not reduce how much money I earn. Biju then stepped forward and announced, greetings. I am Biju of the Canea Merchant Guild. As everyone knows, this is an orange-level gate with a maximum capacity of 50 people and 3 fishers. With this many adventurers, I believe conquering this gate will pose no problem. El Palm thought, disciples? No, I expected the Canea Merchant Guild to recruit me, but I never imagined they would bring me here. So they have already begun using this place. The timing is slightly different from my previous life, but I have conquered this gate once before. My plan will not change. Please remember that every party must fire a signal flare if it discovers the second gate. Dimensional gates are divided into multiple levels according to their color. A second gate means there is another dungeon within the first one. Yellow gates contain 2 dungeons, while green gates contain 3. An orange gate has 2 dungeons, meaning we must conquer 1 more dungeon inside it. The second dungeon will have completely different terrain and monsters. Remember that, you fool. Even Ralph criticized him. I can't believe you know so little. I'm beginning to worry. You said your name was El Palm, correct? Let me make one thing clear. Although I signed a contract with you, we have yet to decide who will be the party leader. Shouldn't the leader be chosen based on ability? El Palme Mirlismaid. So you're the greedy type. Very well. We will determine the party leader according to our contributions inside this gate. Ralph began to contemplate the proposal. This rookie is quite cunning. Once I become the party leader, things will become very interesting. With that, they entered the dimensional gate. Debo said, we'll receive 50 million meso if we close this gate, boss. Let's conquer all 3 fishers while we're here. Ralph sneered. Do you think we came here to camp? I doubt I'll ever see this naive rank 1 brat again. Debo became furious and argued with him. That's it. I'm not taking this anymore. Come at me. Why would I fight when the outcome is already obvious? I don't do anything that won't earn me money. Why, you bastard? Boss, why did you recruit this damn man into our party? He's completely ruined the mood. But once they entered, the bloody scene before him left Debo stunned. Everyone, stay together and maintain formation. If we become separated, we will all die. The moment his attention slipped, a monster ambushed him. Faced with its overwhelming strength, Debo struggled desperately to resist. What the hell is this thing? At that critical moment, Ralph arrived just in time to support Debo. The battle grew increasingly brutal. Ralph tried to reassure them. Calm down. Damn it. Even Kiri could not believe her eyes. This is absurd. The gate opened right in the middle of their swarm. The monsters charged at them in a frenzy. El Palm quickly raised his staff and cast an offensive spell. He calculated inwardly. No. When I entered this place before, the evil eyes did not swarm toward the gate's entrance. This pattern is different from my previous life. Despite their overwhelming assault, Kiri rushed forward to counterattack. She repeatedly evaded their lightning-fast attacks. She dodged that. Her eyes burned with determination. What kind of movement is this? I can't predict it at all. After only a few seconds of carelessness, one of the beasts managed to wound her. Seizing the opportunity, they summoned more of their kind to finish Kiri off. Suddenly, a burst of light annihilated every beast surrounding her. Elsewhere, Dibwa was struggling against a one-eyed demon. This is driving me insane. Suddenly, someone rushed over and shattered the monster's head with a single punch, causing its body to collapse. Ralph smugly said, "The reckless colts have already lost 2 members, while the cool-headed party has lost 1. How thrilling. There's no need to thank me. Just keep acting like that until we leave this place, so I can remain the center of attention." Kiri was stunned by his strength. So that is the man's true ability. I hate to admit it, but rank 3 adventurers truly are different. Before he could stop, another monster charged at him, only to have its body pulverized by his fist. They may move without any discernible pattern, but that is all they have. Now that those 2 rookies are out of the running, the only one left is El Palm, with his fire arrow and remote control. He must possess skills that caught the Kenya Merchant Guild attention. I don't know how he fights, but his attack speed is vastly greater than mine. That means he will undoubtedly be useful. A contract worth 50 million meso is a fortune that few people could ever obtain. Judging by the Merchant Guild's attitude toward him, they may pay him even more in the future. I can already see it. Once I seize control of this party, I'll be swimming in meso. Just then, Kiri shouted, "That monster!" Ralph continued enjoying himself as if he had not a care in the world, slaughtering the monsters with wild excitement. Suddenly, at the height of his excitement, someone kicked Ralph aside. To his surprise, El Palm was the one responsible. Ralph demanded, "May I ask why you launched a surprise attack against me? Are you trying to start a fight?" El Palm casually replied, "There's no need to thank me." Immediately afterward, countless arrows struck the spot where Ralph had been fighting. Ralph shouted in shock, "What was that? Which bastard did this?" The group of hunters was now completely surrounded by monsters. In another corner, an adventurer drew his bow and took aim. El Palm gradually noticed his actions. However, El Palm still had to deal with the other monsters. In that instant, the adventurer's arrows completely annihilated them. El Palm thought he has already begun firing. Seizing the opportunity, El Palm immediately cast Fire Arrow at him. The spell's destructive force obliterated an entire section of the forest. Ralph was astonished. He blocked the Evil Eye's attack and then counterattacked. What a brilliant idea, and what incredible courage. Just then, Deeb was shouted a warning. "Boss, look out!" By the time El Palm noticed, countless arrows were already flying at him from the opposite direction. A massive explosion followed. A short while later, the smoke began to clear. El Palm's body was now covered in wounds. What is happening? I'm certain my attack hit him, didn't it? More surprise attacks suddenly came from behind. Kiri noticed them and urged him, "El Palm, it's too dangerous here. We have to escape immediately." But it was already too late to flee. The entire battlefield was engulfed in a rain of arrows. Nearly everyone there was struck by the deadly projectiles, and almost all those without sufficient strength were killed. Fortunately, Kiri was still alive. She quickly used Heat Slash to break through the encirclement. "What are you doing? If you want to live, hurry into the forest. If we could, we would have already run there. They're waiting in ambush inside the forest. How are we supposed to get past them?" The moment he finished speaking, an enormously destructive spell shot forward and annihilated the monsters. The person who opened that bloody path was none other than El Palm. Swiftly ordered the others not to hesitate and to hurry. But even as they fled, arrows continued raining down on them. Debo cried out anxiously, "Boss, at this rate, we're all going to die." El Palm then unleashed a fire arrow that blasted through the forest. He hurried over and told Dibwa, "Listen carefully." The archer gradually realized something. El Palm had already located him. It seems Lord Evox's concerns were not unfounded. "You're El Palm, aren't you? Sorry, but farewell." Although the archer continuously fired countless arrows, El Palm evaded every one of them. His speed increasingly infuriated the archer. How could a magician be so fast? Wait, there were 6 of them, but one is missing. The one who uses the polearm. Just as he predicted, a fireball came flying at him from nowhere seconds later. The attack was so sudden that he could not react and took the full force of the blast. Only then did the real El Palm make his dramatic appearance. He had personally watched the attack hit its target. The person the archer had been pursuing all this time was actually Dibwa disguised as El Palm. Their plan to exchange disguises had succeeded. It was all thanks to the great Dibwa buying time before he could celebrate. However, an arrow struck him directly. All his companions panicked. Even El Palm had failed to anticipate this. Countless arrows bombarded the party, leaving everyone screaming helplessly. Kiri quickly caught Dibwa and tried to escape, but an arrow struck her leg as well. She and Dibwa both collapsed. Just as Kiri seemed certain to die, Ralph arrived in time to save them. I don't even have children, yet I'm already looking after brats like some old father. What a nuisance. But the archer refused to let them go. Run wherever you like. You will never escape my sights. The archer suddenly noticed something strange. Meanwhile, Ralph continued running for his life. Why exactly are we running this way? I don't know either. Just shut your mouth and do what the boss said. You're almost dead, yet you still dare talk like that. The 3 of them passed through a large thicket. There, they were astonished to discover a gate directly ahead. Ralph stared in disbelief. Impossible. Did that bastard El Palm already know where it was? Whatever. Thanks to him, we'll all survive. The enemy is about 100 meters away. At this distance, we can reach the gate faster than his arrows. Dibwa remained doubtful. Wait, you're not planning to enter the second gate without waiting for the boss, are you? Wasn't that his intention when he let us here? We'll enter the gate first and wait for that bastard inside. Before Ralph could finish explaining, more arrows flew toward the 3 of them. Ralph could not understand what had happened. Why had the attack come from the front? Had the archer somehow circled ahead of them in such a short time? The archer did not stop there and fired several more arrows at Ralph. Unexpectedly, Dibwa's axe flew through the air and blocked every attack. At the same time, a wooden club suddenly appeared behind the 3 of them. Still disoriented, they were struck before they could resist. However, this appeared to be part of El Palm's plan to throw them through the second gate. In this way, they safely entered the inner dungeon. The archer stared in disbelief after witnessing everything. That insane bastard. The fierce battle continued within the forest. An evil I was easily defeated. The concealed archer impatiently waited for the monsters to move. Was El Palm hiding behind the evil eyes to buy time and locate him? Nevertheless, the archer would not give up. He would play along and see how El Palm struggled. In truth, this archer had been taken in by Lord Evox 13 years ago. Of 300 assassins, the final 5 were ordered to slaughter one another until only one survivor remained. That massacre lasted 7 days, and no one found him until everyone else was dead. Lord Evox then bestowed upon him the title Black Shadow, one of the 7 divine assassins. Suddenly, an evil eye lunged at Black Shadow. He swiftly fired an arrow that pierced and tore through its body, but missed the place he had intended to hit. Immediately afterward, a red arrow flew toward Black Shadow, forcing him to twist aside. That attack allowed him to determine the position El Palm had exposed. Standing firmly on a branch, Black Shadow drew 3 arrows and fired them toward a massive ancient tree. Unfortunately, it would not be that easy. El Palm had apparently used telekinesis to conceal his position from the archer's sights. A continuous barrage then flew toward Black Shadow. He struggled to evade it, and the flames obstructed his vision, preventing him from drawing his bow and aiming accurately. The attacks from both sides collided simultaneously, causing a violent explosion. Black Shadow was hurled away and crashed to the ground. He trembled as he pushed himself back up, becoming even more enraged at El Palm. Elsewhere, El Palm carefully listened for movement. Everything had gone quiet, making the situation even more difficult. Black Shadow appeared to be hiding, and El Palm could not sense the slightest trace of his presence, as though he did not exist. El Palm thought carefully. Before his regression, no one this powerful had been inside this gate. Therefore, the archer had to be an assassin sent by Cania. Had El Palm's entry into the 100-person gate truly altered the future? Black Shadow suddenly shouted, "El Palm, come out!" Pulled from his thoughts, El Palm turned in surprise and realized the archer was on the other side. Without waiting for El Palm to answer, Black Shadow continued, "You already know, so let's not waste each other's time. Hiding like a coward is useless," he shouted. "I heard you were a fearless madman, or are you merely an ordinary coward?" El Palm could hardly believe what was happening. Black Shadow could not possibly have crossed that distance without revealing the slightest trace of his presence. Was it teleportation? If so, could it be Quiver Flow? The moment El Palm peeked out from the foliage, Black Shadow sensed his presence and fired. Meanwhile, at the second gate, Ralph, Kiri, and Dibwa had also been transported inside. The moment Dibwa landed, he groaned in pain and complained that those bastards had abandoned them with the boss. Ralph also asked, "Who sent you? Why did you attack our side?" That bastard let Dibwa accompany us while remaining alone. He must have had a reason, right? Suddenly, Dibwa looked down at where he was lying and was horrified to see countless white bones scattered everywhere. This is clearly a 3-water drop gate, so why are the corpses piled up like mountains? Judging by this number, it wasn't 3 parties. 100 parties may have entered this place. Kiri also noticed something unusual. Kania had to be behind everything. She finally understood that it had all been a deception, beginning with their sudden invitation to join. Kania had been manipulating them since the first floor, and the number of corpses did not match the gate's markings. She asked, "Dibwa, do you still not understand? Kania's people serve a dark magician. They must have lured adventurers here before, and they even sent an assassin after us." El Palm was probably telling the truth about this place being a trap. Ralph suddenly warned Kiri, "This doesn't seem like the time to chat. Our host looks rather angry." A boss monster abruptly appeared before them, its enormous, mutated body resembling a mountain yeti. This would undoubtedly be troublesome. Ralph said, "The others should consider themselves lucky. Not everyone gets the chance to encounter this boss." Everyone felt that Ralph might have overestimated his own abilities. If one had to describe Ralph as a person, he was a bastard, a scoundrel, and a man who would do anything for money. But as an adventurer, Ralph was exceptionally useful. Whatever else could be said about him, his strength alone made him reliable. He was perhaps the strongest healer there. As if proving his companions right, Ralph cast healing magic and instantly erased everyone's wounds. They were surprised to learn that Ralph was not a swordsman, but a healer. After restoring them, he warned, "If you're fully recovered, prepare yourselves. Nothing in this world is free." It looks like the boss is about to attack. Ralph quickly dashed out of the boss's attack range. A moment later, the monster's hammer-like blow struck with enough force to shatter the surrounding stone floor and throw everyone off balance. Ignoring the danger, Ralph charged toward the boss at full speed, seized one of its tusks, and drove his axe into its eye. Kiri supported him from below, slashing the beast with her sword. Enraged by the pain, it swung its enormous hand to seize Ralph, but Dibwa intervened in time and chopped off its arm. The boss refused to give up and threw another punch at Ralph. It truly was difficult to handle. Ralph evaded the attacks while using healing magic on his companions. Dibwa thought that Ralph was truly different. Rather than merely healing from the rear, he also served on the front line. Furthermore, he did not heal constantly. He waited until his companions could no longer continue, thereby conserving mana. As if the two shared the same thoughts, Ralph suddenly said, "The first treatment was free, but from this point onward, I'll charge you." This burst of healing magic was even stronger than the previous two. Kiri could also feel power surging through her body, but nothing came without a price. Ralph laughed and said, 100 meso per treatment. Naturally, no one wanted Ralph's magical support anymore. Eventually, the boss monster was defeated. It had been so powerful that everyone was utterly exhausted. At least, that was how they felt. Ralph had not found it particularly difficult and was already busy calculating how they would divide the spoils. Suddenly, the boss opened its enormous mouth and unleashed a deafening roar. Dibwa pinched his nose in disgust. "Your breath stinks. Shut your mouth, boss." Apparently, even a boss monster had its pride. It abruptly sprang back to life and charged with terrifying strength. Back in the forest, El Palm was running for his life, dodging Black Shadow's rocket-like arrows. Something was wrong. El Palm could not locate the source of the shots, yet the attacks kept coming straight at him. A rank 3 archer could use arrow passage to teleport, but that ability could only return its user to one predetermined location. There could only be one return point, making it impossible to move around as Black Shadow currently was. Watching El Palm struggle to find a way to retaliate, Black Shadow mocked him. "You're wasting your time. You're so slow that I'm about to fall asleep." El Palm had no intention of surrendering so easily. He summoned a fireball and launched it, making Black Shadow laugh even harder. Wasting skills like this would cause mana shock. As he moved, Black Shadow silently wondered what El Palm was planning. El Palm was probably attempting to distract him with spells so he could reach the second gate. El Palm also knew he could not continue a battle of endurance against an enemy whose position he could not determine. Everything would fall apart if this continued. Before that happened, he had to find a solution quickly. He had no time to think it through. Having reached this point, El Palm took a gamble, drank an entire potion, and summoned a fireball. Black Shadow dismissed the spell and mocked El Palm for his foolishness. Then he suddenly realized that this fireball was not so simple. 6 flaming arrows shot accurately toward him from its center. No one could have imagined that El Palm would use the strongest spell a rank 3 magician could summon while suffering mana shock. Only a fool willing to sacrifice his own life would do such a thing. El Palm had nearly exhausted all his mana and was barely holding on. If Black Shadow's secret was what El Palm suspected, then he would push himself to the very limit to draw him out. El Palm unleashed a relentless barrage of fire arrows. Watching them, Black Shadow thought, "He's firing without even knowing where I am. That bastard must have lost his mind." One of the fireballs struck the tree where Black Shadow was hiding, forcing him to leap far away. But El Palm was not finished. He struggled to remain standing, swearing to endure until he discovered Black Shadow's position. Black Shadow continued to scorn him. El Palm was a fool if he thought these attacks would ever hit. His fate was already sealed. He would die from mana shock as the power of repeatedly summoning such devastating spells tore his body apart. El Palm coughed up blood. Trembling, he bombarded every part of the forest until the entire area was ablaze. That had been his goal from the beginning, to burn Black Shadow alive. Only an open patch of ground now remained before Black Shadow. With no time to hesitate, he considered running into it. However, an open space appearing at this exact moment was far too suspicious. He immediately turned back. This must be a trap. El Palm had somehow appeared beside him. The moment Black Shadow turned in shock, a fist slammed directly into his face. He had never expected El Palm to locate him. Black Shadow immediately drew an arrow, fired at El Palm, and fled. Now that El Palm had found his enemy, he naturally would not let him escape. He launched a tree trunk toward Black Shadow and impaled him with it. Like a wrathful demon, El Palm charged straight at Black Shadow and attacked. Black Shadow was no ordinary opponent either. He reacted in time, drew his weapon, and counterattacked. The two engaged in an intense battle. Black Shadow appeared to have the advantage due to his agility and his remaining mana. El Palm did not have much time, so he needed to finish the fight quickly. He used his enchanted wooden staff to knock Black Shadow's weapon aside, causing him to lose his balance and fall. Seizing the opportunity, El Palm rushed forward and attacked again. Black Shadow could only skid backward to escape him. But El Palm's offensive abilities did not end there. He used mana to summon a lightning-like force and hurled it at Black Shadow. It seemed the assassin would be finished then and there. Suddenly, an identical archer appeared. The newcomer immediately called out, "Tony, be careful." He appeared to be Black Shadow's twin brother. The newcomer was formidable as well. He immediately rose and drew his bow at El Palm, knowing that El Palm had no time to recover enough mana for another offensive spell. He intended to end the battle. However, he failed to notice a dagger hurtling toward him from behind at terrifying speed. His heart nearly stopped as he leaned aside and narrowly evaded it. El Palm had apparently used his meager remaining mana to control the dagger with telekinesis. Black Shadow finally lost his patience and swiftly charged at El Palm. He leaped into close combat, forcing El Palm to struggle to block his attacks. Even while evading the younger brother's attacks, El Palm continued controlling the dagger with his mind and used it against the elder brother. The elder brother told El Palm, "That is enough of these petty tricks." He prepared to use a final attack to finish him. Unfortunately for him, El Palm still had enough strength to control several stones and send them crashing into his body. Black Shadow charged, never expecting a magician like El Palm to be so skilled in close combat. El Palm delivered a powerful kick to Black Shadow's side. He reminded himself not to reveal an opening and continued, directing the dagger after the fleeing assassin. El Palm followed with his weapon and smashed it into Black Shadow's face, while the assassin was occupied evading the dagger. Enduring the pain, the elder brother seized an arrow and drove it into El Palm's arm. Black Shadow used the opportunity to kick El Palm away and even praised his brother. Black Shadow then drew a dagger and pointed it toward El Palm. He wanted to see what El Palm could do with only his left arm now that his right had been injured. Yet El Palm easily blocked Black Shadow's attack one-handed. He seized the assassin's weapon arm and broke it instantly. Black Shadow roared furiously. "Let go of me, you bastard! Do you want me to put another hole in your body?" Only a fool would release his enemy now. El Palm immediately summoned a fireball and violently hurled it at Black Shadow. Seeing his younger brother in mortal danger, the elder brother shouted in terror. Black Shadow was blasted toward the base of a tree. Naturally, after taking a direct hit, Black Shadow no longer had the strength to continue. He fell to his knees, coughing violently and unable to breathe. But it did not end there. El Palm attacked again, while the other archer frantically searched for his brother, leaving himself completely unguarded. El Palm plunged down from above and drove the sharp point of an arrow into Black Shadow. "You really are a tenacious bastard." Black Shadow cursed as he used the last of his strength to retaliate, wounding El Palm. With blood loss and mana depletion taking their toll, El Palm's skill also lost its power while he was attacking. The archer seized the opportunity to search for the other two. When he arrived, however, he found his brother lying in a pool of blood. He hurried over and helped him up. The brothers had already wasted too much time. They had to obtain the phoenix feather. But before they could leave, he noticed something strange. His brother was still lying on the ground in front of him. Then who was the person he was supporting? Before he could process what was happening, El Palm drove a knife straight through his body. El Palm had exhausted all his strength to eliminate both archers at once, and a mana shock made him collapse in fatigue. He was thoroughly sick of fighting archers. Meanwhile, Dubois, Ralph, and Kiri were battling the monster on the snowy mountain. Ralph was the most energetic of the three. "You're too slow. What the hell? Why is this thing so tough, you bastard?" Kiri used Sun Slash to save Ralph when a monster cornered him. "That makes us even. I've repaid you once now." The three of them desperately tried to escape. Dubois asked, "Ralph, have you figured out how to deal with this thing yet? If this keeps up, watch behind you." Ralph was still distracted. "What? Behind me where?" Dubois jumped aside. "This thing is enormous. Be more specific." Ralph shouted, "Shut up and distracted. I need to get as close to its weak point as possible." The opportunity finally came. Dubois gave the signal. "Now, hurry." Damn it, it noticed. So it isn't just a big, stupid brute after all. Kiri cried out, "Ralph, heal me." Ralph warned her, "I only have 4 heals left. Try to dodge its attacks as much as possible." "All right, I'll try to find an opening. So spread out." "Damn it, I told you to dodge. What are you doing? Did she pass out? What a waste of skill." Dubois remembered a conversation he had once had with El Palm. "Advancing my mana circle? El Palme Nadif." "Yes, you've accumulated enough experience to reach the second mana circle. It would be best for you to advance your mana circle in the future." Dubois was still uncertain. "Is that something I can do whenever I want?" El Palm could not promise him that. "Enlightenment also depends on how you think." Dubois was intrigued. "Enlightenment? What's that?" "You have to teach me." To someone like El Palm, it was nothing to worry about. "Well, it's different for everyone. Even if I shared my own experience with you now, it would be useless." Dubois looked disappointed. "Then what am I supposed to do?" El Palm's next words reached deep into his consciousness. "You simply need to find what suits you. It could come from your understanding of mana, your pursuit of knowledge, or an unforgettable memory." Ralph was stunned when Dubois suddenly rose again, even stronger than before. He cut through that monster's thick armor of ice in a single strike. What happened to him? Did that kid advance his mana circle? "Good job, kid. Now hurry up and stand. You're still worried about me at a time like this?" Dubois regained consciousness after defeating the monster, but he did not even realize he had killed it. "What is this? Ralph, what happened?" The three of them treated their wounds inside a nearby cave. Dubois sat beside the fire. "Oh, you're finally awake." Her entire body aching, Kiri struggled to sit up. "You're still alive? What happened to the monster?" Dibwa answered uneasily. Well, you can see for yourself. What do you think you're covered with? I was hungry, so I tried eating that ape's meat, but it was impossible. It was too tough and chewy. Kiri could hardly believe him. You really have some nerve. So you've been waiting all this time for us to wake up? Dibwa nodded. That's true, but I couldn't find the exit, so I didn't have much choice. Besides, with the weather like this, resting for a while won't hurt. His condition isn't good either. Once the blizzard settles down, I plan to scout outside. You should rest a little longer. I'll go alone. Outside, the wind and snow were growing stronger, making every step difficult for Dibwa. It's already dark. I wonder how my boss is doing. Damn it, I can't think straight. TSK, I knew something would happen. These ugly monsters just keep getting my way. When she saw Dibwa return, Kiri sprang to her feet. You're back. Did you find the exit? What happened to you? Why are you so battered? Dibwa replied, hello to you too. I just ran into a few obstacles along the way. Alarmed and worried, Kiri exclaimed, what? There's still monsters outside? That's far too dangerous. I'll go with you. Dibwa shook his head. Someone needs to stay here and look after this second-rate thug. We're still teammates, after all. But Kiri remained determined. No, I'm going with you. I can't let you shoulder this alone. Dibwa lay down wearily. Would you please be quiet? It's better for one person to handle it. Otherwise, we might end up scouting the same place twice. Stop wasting your strength and get more rest. Kiri knew perfectly well that Dibwa was only putting on an act. Why is that idiot pretending to be strong? He's clearly forcing himself to endure it. Earlier, while Dibwa was fighting the monsters, they had cornered him. It's freezing. That was close. I really thought I was going to die this time. Huh? Is someone there? No, it's only a corpse. It looks like he died fairly recently. What's this? His will. A letter? He wrote a few lines on the front too. I leave this letter to you, a person whose name I do not know. I also give you my gloves. They are not much of a reward, but if you are a warrior, their warrior mastery ability should prove useful. As you can see, we fell into Kania's trap, and my companions were killed by the snow yeti. But there is some good news. I found the gate leading outside. Unfortunately, it is a special gate. It appears that you must defeat the boss before the gate can be activated. I drew a rough map showing the gate's location on the back of this letter. I hope you possess enough strength to escape, and please deliver this letter to its intended recipient on my behalf. Just as the letter said, Dibwa and the others found the gate. What should we do now? Kiri replied, first, we need to recover. One look at our current condition is enough to tell that neither of us can fight. A group of masked figures suddenly appeared. Well, it seems the rumors were true. The ghost really has been defeated. Dibwa was shocked to see them. Impossible. Kania? Those bastards. This is bad. In my current condition, I can't deal with them. They charged toward the group. There's no need to worry. We'll finish you off immediately. Kiri stepped forward to block them, but she was no match for them. In the end, they were all defeated. A man who looked exactly like Dibwa took down their attackers. I hate to say this, but what's wrong? You've been dying to see me, haven't you? Dibwa laughed. Sure, believe whatever you want, but you're late. Don't forget to buy us a few beers. Elsewhere, an imposing man was troubled. A man with such skill suddenly appeared, yet no one knows who is behind him. It seems the public is about to descend into chaos. Biju arrived to report. My lord, Elpalm has returned. What should I do about the contract now? The man appeared to despise Elpalm. Kill him. We no longer have time to worry about public opinion. He is far too unpredictable. Do you really think he acted alone? We can fabricate an excuse afterward. Biju added, he did not return alone, my lord. Others came with him. Ralph was displeased with the food. This tastes awful. Dibwa immediately flew into a rage. Don't insult my sister's cooking. Shut up and eat. Ralph calmly continued. I think she should add more salt. In contrast, Dinev was very welcoming. If there isn't enough, just let me know. Kiri smiled. Thank you very much. Dibwa gritted his teeth. This is exactly why I didn't want to bring you here. Ralph and Kiri replied. Kania must have heard the news by now. It wouldn't be wise for us to split up. This is the safest place for your sister. Even if we run, they'll eventually catch us. Elpalm stood outside the door. How is everyone feeling? I had something to take care of. Ralph had been waiting for him. Perfect timing. I want to discuss how we're dividing the reward. Since we all contributed equally, let's postpone deciding the party leader. When are you giving us the 7 million meso? Dibwa could not understand what Ralph was thinking. Have you lost your mind? Do you seriously want to demand money from Kania right now? Besides, you said I defeated the snow yeti by myself. I might not remember much, but you did nothing except sleep while I searched for the exit. Kiri interjected. I heard Elpalm also fought 2 twin assassins. Ralph made a sour face. Did anyone witness it? Kiri turned to Elpalm. What are you planning to do now? He hesitated. Kania will try something again, And when that happens, to everyone's surprise, ABI's arrived. How much longer do you plan to keep me waiting, kid? Could you tell the bastard who just walked in that he needs to hurry? Elsewhere, someone cursed inwardly. Damn it, nothing is going according to plan. I never expected the Cania Merchant Guild to contact El Palm. They started clearing the gate before I could do anything. Should I stop them? If this continues, I'm as good as dead. ABIs had come to find El Palm. This is unexpected. Did your negotiations with Cania fail? El Palm explained, I propose a reward of 50 million meso if the trial succeeded. Now that the gate expedition is over, the contract is the only connection left between us. ABIs frowned. So what? Did you come here to brag? El Palm clicked his tongue. You're as troublesome as ever. If you have nothing to say, you can leave. ABIs finally gave in. Fine, you win. 60 million meso. Sign here. That's more than you asked for. So you have no complaints now, right? With this, we're officially partners. We need to be more honest with each other. El Palm came straight to the point. Cania is behind the deception. The trial was a trap. They lied and said there were only 3 challenges, even though at least 100 people died inside. They even sent assassins after us. ABIs was stunned. Damn it. Then they were trying to eliminate the evidence. Cania, this time I'll truly bring you down. El Palm asked, why do you sound excited? My testimony is the only evidence, so they can simply deny everything. ABIs considered the situation. Of course, but I can manipulate public opinion. The other merchant guilds need a scapegoat for the failure of the 100-person gate. If public opinion turns against Cania, they'll lose their position. El Palm added, but instead of merely dragging Cania down, we could destroy them completely. We can wipe them from the face of the world. There is still too much that ABIs did not know. What else are you hiding? I thought we agreed to be transparent with each other. El Palm calmed him down. Do not reveal this matter yet. It will be more effective to expose everything at once. The followers of the Dark Magician are already making their move. Biju came out to receive her guest. It has been a long time. What brings you here? ABIs replied, I came to apologize. There was a misunderstanding between my guild and El Palm. I assumed that, because he was young, he had hurried back to seek revenge. I apologize. To be clear, El Palm is now an official business partner of Gayfer. I apologize. It seems I'm stealing him away from you. Biju spoke calmly. I understand. In that case, I cannot pay you the fee promised in the contract. Is that acceptable? ABIs immediately agreed. This is rather personal, but the incident made me realize how precious human life is. I've decided to treat people as they deserve to be treated. I will station guards outside around the clock to ensure nothing unfortunate happens. Naturally, the protection also extends to El Palm's party members. I have realized that they work very well as a team. Anyone who tries to harm El Palm or his party will have to face the entire Gayfer Machinist Guild. Debo was astonished by the enormous sum. 60 million meso? What kind of magic did you use? Kiri was equally puzzled. They even sent bodyguards to protect us. Is the Gayfer Machinist Guild really doing all this? Ralph grew tremendously excited. Amasin, el Baume. You're good at business. I remember how capable this guild is. Now all we need to do is remove the useless members. I guarantee there isn't another bishop like me anywhere in Lith Harbor. No, I should say there isn't one in all of Maple World. I can heal, protect the party, and fight. I am truly versatile. And you, kid, Ralph pointed at Debois. You really are a monster. What exactly are you? I thought you had passed out, but instead you defeated the boss mob all by yourself. There's something about you that can't be put into words. Kiri was also deeply impressed by Debois. Come to think of it, he fought like a madman against those monsters, even while unconscious. How did you do it? Debois slowly explained. No matter how hard I try, I can't remember anything. The only thing I recall feels like a dream. A mysterious woman always appears in that dream. Sometimes we fight each other, but it also feels as if we're very close. Whenever I wake up, I forget her face. All I remember is that she uses a polearm. El Palm was stunned. Before his regression, everyone knew that Debois and Aaron had fought side by side, wielding a mysterious power. If that woman was Aaron, had part of Debois' power from before the regression returned while he was unconscious? What is happening? Did my regression alter the past and cause something to go wrong? Ralph teased. Ignorance truly is painful. Debois snapped. You think you're so smart? Ralph turned to El Palm. You cast spells incredibly quickly, too. With your knowledge and appraisal skills, it's hard to believe you have so little experience. No wonder Gayfer wants you so badly. As for you, I'm not so sure. Your fundamentals are solid, and you're fairly intelligent. That isn't bad for a rank 2 training captain of the Sigma Knights, but there's nothing special about you. The Gayfer Machinists Guild isn't foolish. We act as bait, and they pay us. From now on, our job is to enter the trap Kania has prepared and find those items. It's madness. I'll gladly do anything crazy as long as I'm paid. But I don't like sharing rewards with people who only hold me back. I'd be grateful if you returned to the Sigma Knights right now. Kiri recalled her visit a few days earlier. I heard you've been having a difficult time lately. It's been so long that I thought you had died inside that gate. Are you here to see the guild master? I also heard you joined some adventuring party. You've really fallen far. Then again, that must be the perfect place for you. That's right. Giving up is the best thing you can do for the knights and for a master. Go on. Master is in the room. Kiri's master asked, so you're quitting? Why? This isn't like you. Kiri bowed her head. I apologize, master, but I cannot explain it right now. Someday, I will report that joining the adventuring party is part of a secret mission. Report to me once every 3 weeks. Do not forget, Kiri, you are still my disciple, and you will always be a knight of the Sigma Order. Kiri spoke resolutely. I know this may sound excessive, but as long as even one of their disciples remains among the knights, I cannot return until I have accomplished something. No, I don't need any money. If everyone gives me time, I promise I'll improve. So please, Ralph laughed. You really are a child. Is the reason I want you out of the party so difficult to understand? To everyone's surprise, El Palm spoke up. Are you confident you can do it? If she went off to hunt those disciples alone, it would only bring them even more trouble, especially with her personality. Ralph, you said she had no skills, didn't you? Let me make this clear. You seem rather confident in your abilities now, but you're not the only one disappointed by the skills of your teammates. The reason I sent all of you to the second floor first was because I believed you could easily clear that place. But without Dibwa, you would all have died. Ralph frowned. The enemy was incredibly tough. What gives you the right to say that? El Palm already had the snow Yeti completely figured out. You call that tough? I once hunted a snow Yeti by myself. That was before my regression, but if everything had gone according to plan, I would have defeated it this time as well. However, I had to change my plans because the assassins Kania sent were better than I expected. Neither my companions nor I were as strong as we are now. To Ralph, this was beyond belief. Nonsense. How could you have done that when you were a slave until recently? El Palm folded his arms. You don't believe me? Would you like to see proof? Ralph immediately became frightened. No, that's all right. Then you don't need me either? El Palme Chakev. It's simple. You only need to become better than you are now. There is still about a month before the next expedition. At this rate, violence is the only solution. Biju reported to her superior. It appears that things are not proceeding as planned. If we come into conflict with Gayfer, public attention will undoubtedly turn toward us. The man asked, how much do they know? Wasn't the negotiation merely a charade from the beginning? Biju shook her head. I'm not certain. Even our spies have reported it, so there may be information known only to those at the top. The man glared coldly. Gayfer is not the problem. Once that day comes, eliminating them will be child's play. Our only true enemy is the Maple Alliance. 8 centuries ago, Empress Cygnus, the Cygnus Knights, the Royal Guard, the Adventurers Guild, and the Nova clan gathered to form an alliance after the 6 heroes were sealed away. They remain our greatest threat. If this were merely a conflict between merchant guilds, there would be no need to seek assistance from above. Still, I have a bad feeling. You say he accomplished all of that with Gayfer's help alone? Investigate Gayfer more thoroughly. El Palm, I hope you prove to be an interesting adversary. Ralph struggled desperately against El Palm. Damn it, what kind of monster is he? What mage can wield a sword like that? El Palm approached with his sword. Go on, attack me. Today's training will end if you manage to hit me just once. Ralph immediately turned and ran. Stay away from me. While meditating, Dibwa suddenly shouted, I can't concentrate with all that noise. I would rather train the way they are. Why do I have to do this? El Palm had told him, You must try to accept the power that emerges when you lose consciousness. Honestly, I do not know whether it is possible, but it would be excellent if you could. Ralph continued running and screaming, "Please spare me." Debo was also beginning to lose heart. Is this really going to make me stronger? After the grueling training session, Ralph's face was swollen beyond recognition. El Palm, is this really training? El Palma di Man perfectly. Not exactly. I was merely circling around you. Beside them, Debo clutched his stomach and laughed. You look very handsome. There was still one concern on El Palm's mind. By the way, is it really safe to let that girl Dinev go alone? Debo replied, someone will be protecting her, so she will be fine. I spoke to her to ensure that tomorrow's training would not be affected. Boss, now that I think about it, there is something I would like to ask you. This is a keepsake belonging to someone. I found it inside the gate, and it was thanks to this that we managed to escape. It truly helped us, so I would like to return it to its rightful owner. But there is no recipient's name written anywhere. Do you know what I should do? The moment El Palm saw the letter, his expression changed. It bore the Cross Hunter seal. Debo asked, Boss, what's wrong? Taking the letter, El Palm said, I have an idea. I will handle this, so go to bed early tonight. Starting tomorrow, you will be training with the rest of us as well. That evening, Kiri trained until she was completely exhausted, but because the slimes had insulted her, that she stubbornly refused to give up. That night, El Palm visited the home of a stranger. Who are you? El Palm raised one hand. Merely a messenger. The gate collapse incident had been highly unusual. A dimensional gate was suddenly destroyed by unidentified individuals, forcing the merchant guild that owned it to investigate the culprits. Yet their investigation accomplished nothing. More precisely, there was no longer any need to find the culprits. To everyone's surprise, the gate suddenly reappeared in the exact same location. After the truth became public, no other gates were ever destroyed. Later, I learned who was behind that incident and why they had done it. The people before El Palm demanded, How did you find this place? Explain yourself. You have 5 seconds. They were the Cross Hunters. A secret organization that had discovered that the dimensional gates were merely traps created by the Dark Magician's disciples. They were also responsible for destroying those gates. Their noble but silent sacrifices had gone unrecorded in history. El Palm's expression darkened. I only came to return something you lost, but it seems you have no intention of repaying my kindness. You seem confused, so I will take a shortcut. It would cause problems for me as well if you continued wasting time here. For personal reasons, I cannot tell you how I found this place. However, if you kill me, the location beneath Edelstein City Hall where your leader, Bastille, is hiding will be exposed. Starling glared at him. Who are you? El Palmes Maiv. At last we meet. No, perhaps I should say that it has been a long time. Before my regression, she and I were comrades. Starling. Joined the resistance after the Cross Hunters were annihilated. We fought through countless battles together, until the day she sacrificed herself. I will repay that debt in advance. I will be direct. Withdraw from the Kerning City branch. The Dark Magician's disciples have already discovered it. Also, I recently acquired this. It appears that Kania has been cultivating something very interesting within her ranks. Starling could not understand him. What do you mean? If you intend to mock us, you will regret it. El Palm replied, See for yourself. Starling was startled when she saw the disciples' mark. It was a brand borne by the Dark Magician's disciples to prove their allegiance. It was almost impossible to detect unless mana was channeled into it. Few people today should even know about the disciples. What do you want? Do not give me some absurd claim that you came here merely to make a deal. El Palm answered seriously. What I want is information. I need it. One of the Cross Hunters said, Don't tell me you believe anything he says. Starling shook her head. Of course not. He is extremely suspicious. His behavior and his sudden appearance at this particular time suggest that this may be a trap set by the disciples. For now, let us see where he tries to lead us. As El Palm walked away, he thought, I happened to obtain a few useful items and acquire the information I needed about Kania. I never expected them to target that place. Did their plan change because the future is changing? If this continues, then she will. I've decided. Our next destination will be Nautilus. 1 month later, El Palm looked at the companions gathered before him. Has it really been a month? I've been itching for action. ABI said to El Palm, Choose. There is a 60-person gate at Six Path Crossway or a 77-person gate in Alinea. I brought you every gate that Kania might be interested in. Why don't you begin right now? It has already been a month. El Palm considered his options. There is one thing troubling me. ABI's growled. What is it, you bastard? Don't tell me you're frightened after coming this far. El Palm continued. I have already chosen our destination. Eagle Eye's tomb. ABI's was bewildered. What? Eagle Eye's tomb? Do you have any idea what kind of territory that is? Kirin, captain of the Nautilus, commands countless pirates. Her first disciple was known as Eagle Eye Rhea. Eagle Eye's Gate was where that disciple lost her life, and it has since become a tomb honoring her. You mean the place with a bounty of 9,990,000 meso? Countless adventurers have failed there. It truly deserves to be called unconquerable. Don't tell me Cania's merchant guild that is pursuing it. More importantly, where did you obtain that information? Rockin entered the room. It seems I have stumbled upon an interesting conversation. Seeing Rockin, ABI's was surprised. Sir, why have you come here? Rockin immediately answered. I thought I would give you a gift before your departure. Rockin took out the gift and handed it to ABI's. Here, this is a special item prepared by Gayfer, a phoenix feather. 2 of them, in fact. I look forward to seeing good results. That means I must accomplish as much as possible with these. I now have 4 phoenix feathers in total. What an unexpected windfall. Dibwa asked, why aren't you going inside, boss? There's still one more person coming. Is it the deliverer man? Iburu entered, carrying something extremely heavy. It has been a while, Dibwa. Dibwa shouted, oh, it's Iburu. What are you carrying? Iburu replied, the goods your boss requested. I can't believe he made me deliver them personally. In any case, try them on. Are these free? They're much lighter than I expected. It feels like I'm wearing nothing at all. This is incredible. What are they made from? Iburu laughed. The snow yeti hide your boss tossed to me. He told me to make these from it. Remember? El Palm picked up another piece of equipment. I will take this one. Iburu looked at everyone. You people seem to have been doing quite well lately. I suppose that makes sense, considering you possess the ability to clear a 100-person gate. Dibor interrupted. Hey, put that down. Wait, how do you know about that? Iburu continued. How could I not know after receiving an item that was obviously so difficult to obtain? Don't worry, I'm the only one who knows. There are still a few pieces of equipment left as well. As he spoke, El Palm handed Iburu a jewel. What is this? Iburu asked. I appreciate the offer, but I have no use for it. Although Iburu refused, El Palm insisted on giving it to him. We have no time left. Everyone, change your equipment quickly. At the airship, the crowd enthusiastically welcomed Lady Minerva. Lady Minerva, thank you for all your hard work. Lady Minerva did it. She cleared an orange-level 200-person gate with only 74 people. Lady Minerva has returned. Her achievement changed the entire momentum of gate conquest. Immediately after returning, she went to see the captain. Why? I even cleared that 200-person gate with only 74 people. I must be far stronger than Eagle Eye Rhea was. There is no reason to stop me. The captain replied. Are you defying your captain? Do you intend to disobey my orders? Minerva's displeasure was obvious. Then how am I supposed to avenge Rhea? You know how hard I have worked for this. Kirin answered. As your captain, I order you once again to return. Minerva helplessly dropped her head onto the table. She absolutely refuses to allow me to go. Should I ignore her orders and claim the bounty? She is only doing this because she cares about you. She is overly protective. Suddenly, someone rushed in with a report. Minerva, something has happened. Come outside quickly. It will only take a moment. Someone has claimed the bounty on Eagle Eye's tomb. Who are they? People from the mainland. Those bastards took the bounty. El Palm could feel everyone staring at him. What is going on? Why is the atmosphere so strange? Kiri snapped. This is their territory, so keep your mouth shut. We ignored their unwritten rules. It would not be surprising if a bullet came flying at us right now. The rules of Nautilus were simple. Whoever claimed a bounty received priority in conquering its gate, and anyone who claimed a gate's bounty was required to enter it. Those were the 2 official rules. However, nearly every group knew the unwritten rule. Never claim the bounty on a gate that someone else had already set their sights on. That was precisely the bounty we had taken. Minerva shouted from behind them. Who the hell are you people? Who do you think you are claiming that bounty? It belongs to me. El Palm replied. Then you should have claimed it before I did. I was waiting because I had not yet received permission. El Palm asked, permission? I don't remember needing anything like that. I do, because Captain Kirin is my master. In any case, that does not matter. You clearly do not understand Nautilus's bounty rules. Its bounties are only available to pirates. Anyone who is not a pirate is forbidden from claiming them. The same applies to every gate owned by Nautilus. El Palme Chakel, infuriating Minerva. Stop laughing and hand over the bounty. El Palm continued to smile teasingly. I would rather not. Allow me to introduce us. We are the Iburu Pirates. Upon hearing them introduce themselves as the Iburu Pirates, Minerva refused to believe them. Don't give me that nonsense. Do you think becoming a pirate is that easy? There's an official process for everything. El Palmes Maíz. You have never heard of Captain Iburu of the Iburu Pirates? Iburu said, I told you, I'm a real pirate. The fact that we are aboard the Nautilus should make that obvious. If our party's captain is a pirate, then this is unquestionably a pirate party. Naturally, that makes it a party belonging to the pirate world. Murat approached them. That sounds rather forced. By that logic, the rest of you are not actually pirates, correct? Murad's remark irritata al Palma. Is he really going to nitpick over that? Murat asked Minerva, what is all this commotion? El Palm looked at him. Murat, that is a name I never encountered before my regression. Still, this probably does not violate the rules. Murat continued, let me see. Kirin established the rules, so this is ultimately for her to decide. Where are the other members of your party? Don't tell me these are all of you. There are only 5 people in total. This is madness. Do you realize that this gate is intended for 74 people? What is he calculating? He seems rather suspicious. What is your name? Iam Yil Paume. The crowd began murmuring. I've heard that name before. If I remember correctly, he was one of the survivors of the red level 100-person gate. You mean that rumored 100-person gate? I heard nearly all the adventurers who entered it died. Then they cannot be ordinary people. Yes, that story is true. So what? He still failed to conquer that gate. What is so impressive about merely surviving? Weren't they just cowards who tucked their tails between their legs and fled because they lacked the strength to win? Minerva conquered an orange-level 200-person gate with only 74 people. In terms of strength, hasn't Minerva already won overwhelmingly? Minerva felt a headache coming on. Would all of you stop making such a commotion? Very well, I understand. Why don't we each compromise a little? Since you claim the bounty, you will retain priority in conquering the gate. The remaining 69 places can be transferred to other pirate crews. El Palm answered, 100,000 meso per person. However, I will sell only 10 places. When Murat saw Minerva preparing the money, he hurriedly said, wait, are you seriously going to buy them? Those people will die anyway. We can simply enter after they're all wiped out. If they somehow escape and survive, however, the matter will be over. What about Kirin? I don't have time. I can act first and apologize to her afterward. I cannot surrender that place to anyone. El Palm's head began to ache as Dibwa, obsessed with money, started complaining. Why would you do that when everything was going so well? There are so many places available, yet you're only selling 10? We have already lost 5.9 million meso. Go back and sell all the remaining places. If we sell every place, the enemy will outnumber us 14 to 1. You haven't forgotten about the disciples, have you? Who cares? We could just crush every last one of them. This time, it will not be that simple. Their objective this time was to assassinate Minerva, Kirin's second disciple, at the same gate where Kirin's first disciple, Rhea, also known as Eagle Eye, had died. After Minerva, Rhea's successor, died at that same gate, Captain Kirin fell into severe shock, withdrew from the front lines, and lived in seclusion. Because of the disciples' covert activities, every pirate aboard the Nautilus was eventually annihilated. This should not have happened for another 2 years, but circumstances have changed. I received information from the Cross Hunters that Kania transferred money through the Nautilus. That indicates they have accelerated their plans. We must act first, and to protect Minerva properly, we need to limit the number of participants. I cannot repeat the mistakes of the past. I need to minimize the number of variables. Be quiet. The boss always has a reason for what he does. While El Palm was in his room, someone suddenly knocked on the door. Is that Captain Kirin? Aingd Murat, what brings the two of you here at this hour? Kirin spoke seriously. There is something I must personally confirm, so you had better not lie. Are you one of the Dark Magician's disciples? El Palm considered the question. How does Kirin know about the disciples' existence? Has the future already changed? Or was it always like this? If so, why did I never learn about it before my regression? Murat noticed El Palm's troubled expression. You seem rather anxious. Could it be that? El Palm immediately explained, I am not one of the disciples. I am merely surprised to hear those words coming from the two of you. Murat continued, you did not express any doubt about the disciples' existence. Kieran interrupted. Enough evasions. How are we supposed to believe you are not one of them? Where's your proof? El Palm replied. There is nothing difficult about providing proof. You already knew who was following me and what my relationship with them was, didn't you? Otherwise, what came for me would not have been a question, but a bullet. You are a cross hunter, aren't you? So we were connected from the beginning. That's right. The disciples belong to Kania's group, and you are their enemy. But that does not make you our ally. Still, perhaps we can cooperate. I believe that is why you came here today. What do you want from me? The situation is extremely serious. I know that the Dark Magician's disciples were behind Lia Eagle Eye's death. However, they have concealed themselves deep within the Nautilus. Other than Marat, myself, and a few trusted comrades, I cannot trust anyone under these circumstances. El Paume Kerst inwardly. Damn it, has it already gotten that bad? Everything is moving much faster than I expected. I heard they are about to make their move. Their current target is probably Minerva. With Lia gone, Minerva has become the symbol of this ship. If Minerva, who now stands at the center of our pirate crew, dies, the Nautilus will descend into chaos. Even I would not be able to control what happens next. Here is my proposal. I want you to keep Minerva alive inside Eagle Eye's tomb. In return, I will give you items from the Nautilus's treasury. El Palm's party accepted the offer. I will go on ahead. Take your time getting there. A gloomy landscape appeared before them. Dibwa remarked, "This place looks different again." Kiri shouted, "Dibwa, do you think we're on a picnic? Take this seriously." Upon seeing a strange creature, Dibwa laughed instead of showing fear. "What is this stupid-looking thing? Stay right there. I will finish it quickly." The moment he finished speaking, an even larger creature appeared. Dibwa scratched his head in alarm. "So you brought your mother along, too?" El Palm's party fought desperately against the two strange monsters. Do not stop. Focus on one at a time. The gunfire is drawing them here, so more and more will keep coming. Do not panic. We can handle them. Everyone, do not be afraid of these worthless creatures. We are the people who survived a 200-person gate. She is right. Hold the line. Minerva, charge forward. Leave this place to me. This is insane. There is another one. Where do they keep coming from? That bastard disappeared on his own again. El Palm considered his options. All right, let's try this. Right now, everyone is fighting chaotically. If you keep charging in however you please, you will only make the situation worse. From now on, everyone will fight together as a team. From this moment forward, we are a family. Dibwa, you'll go first. Break into the enemy formation and throw them into disarray. It does not matter if you cannot kill them immediately. Focus only on wounding them. Keep your eyes forward and continue advancing. No matter what happens, ignore any attacks coming from behind. Someone else will cover you. El Palm then reminded Ralph, "You are Dibwa's shield. Forget your old, selfish way of fighting. From now on, fight for Dibwa. Protect him at all costs. That is an order." Ralph charged forward. "Fine, let's give it a try." Is this paternal affection? What a powerful emotion. And Kiri, your role is the most important. Wounds inflicted by your ability are extremely difficult to heal. Finish off anyone affected by it immediately. Solar Wheel Slash. Over the past month, you have improved more than anyone else among us. Kiri smiled. This is easier than I expected. Let's keep going and wipe them all out. Kedro, why are you here? We already had everyone who was scheduled to come. Move aside. This is not the time to argue about that. We have an emergency. We must warn Minerva immediately. You have worked hard, Minerva. It was nothing. Then shall we get moving? Minerva is incredible. Look at the size of that magic. If we sold it on the market, it would be worth at least. Before she could finish, the monster struck her with a powerful blow. What was that? Everyone be careful. Damn it. Minerva. I know. Minerva glared at El Palm. You bastard. Explain yourself right now. El Palme cast purification magic. Hold still. I will finish this quickly. The battle against the monsters continued. Elsewhere, Iburu flew into a rage. Has everyone forgotten about me? That bastard El Palm told me to trust him, and then he abandoned me. Why did he bring me here if he was going to do this? If I had not found this ant burrow, I would already be dead. But I cannot keep hiding like this forever. If everyone else has already escaped, then I really am. Iburu looked down from the burrow and realized that he was standing at a considerable height. Damn it, I will show him that I am a two-circle adventurer too. I will not die so easily in a place like this. Iburu had discovered the second gate. He began wondering what he should do and whether he should wait there. Suddenly, a strange creature landed on his shoulder, startling him so badly that he fell to the ground. Do you belong to El Palm? Why are you here? I thought my heart was going to leap out of my chest. Iburu suddenly heard a whirling sound and screamed. No. Elsewhere, El Palm ordered, hold still. I will finish this quickly, Minerva shouted. Shut up and explain yourself. Did you not hear me? The object Minerva held projected light onto the device over El Palm's eyes, producing red sparks before exploding. At that moment, Kedro arrived with a powerful relic capable of pulling people toward it instantly. When he saw El Palm's group fleeing, Kedro immediately shouted, "He is still alive. Hurry and pursue him." It appears that Bastard did the same thing inside the 100-person gate. Kieran sent us here after discovering his true identity. While Minerva was distracted, they secretly seized the relic and turned its pulling force against her. What are you doing? He is alone. Open fire. Flames erupted everywhere. As El Palm searched for an escape route, Minerva blocked his path. Did you think I would forget to keep an eye on you? Minerva fired at El Palm, but the shot missed. From behind them, Kedro shouted, "Everyone get down." Before Murat could stop him, Kedro threw a grenade. The explosion shattered the surrounding rock, causing the ground to collapse and form a small underground chamber. Worried about Minerva, Murat gave an immediate order. "Everyone get over here. Hurry." Minerva still did not understand what was happening when she found El Palm standing directly before her. "You bastard. What the hell are you doing? Tell me your plan right now." Minerva pressed her gun against El Palm's throat. He asked, "Are you ready to deal with this?" Outside, someone grabbed Kedro by the collar. "What are you doing?" Minerva was caught in there too. "Minerva, are you still alive?" The moment he finished speaking, sparks burst from below. "What the hell is that?" Gunfire erupted, and Kedro still could not understand what Minerva was doing. Minerva asked El Palm, "So, what was the result?" El Palm replied, "I only wasted mana, thanks to your useless subordinates." Just as I suspected, they were all new recruits. Sensing that something was wrong, Minerva said, "Zio, lead everyone out of here." "That is an order from Kieran." She tried to process his words. "A conspiracy aboard the Nautilus? Did my own comrades kill Ya?" El Palm handed her a necklace. "Kieran asked me to give this to you." "That is Kieran's necklace. She would never give it to anyone else. It is the symbol of her authority." Then Kieran truly knew about everything and wanted to protect me. Minerva looked troubled. "Then the people you just killed were. But how is that possible? How did you identify them?" El Palm told her, "Except for the 3 people standing at the front, every one of them is a disciple." "Disciples? What nonsense are you talking about?" "Minerva, he has no evidence. How can you possibly believe him?" El Palm held up his glasses. "Evidence? You mean something like this?" Even before El Palm's regression, dealing with the disciples had been extremely difficult. Their tattoos would not appear unless mana was channeled into them, and each disciple bore the tattoo on a different part of the body. But just because ordinary eyes could not see the tattoos did not mean they did not exist. El Palm grabbed Kedro by the head. "I usually try to respect other people's preferences, but is your tattoo not in a rather obvious place? The symbol of the dark magician. That cannot be. Damn it, kill them all. What in the world is happening?" El Palm turned to Minerva. "I used too much mana hunting them down. At this rate, we will be at a disadvantage. The second gate is nearby. We should enter it and hide for now." Minerva snapped, "Shut up. I will kill every last one of them with my own hands. Stay back if you do not want to get hurt. It is time to hunt." Minerva screamed, "What kind of illusion is this? I cannot see anything, just as I expected. Now you have completely lost your sight. How wonderful. Prepare yourself, Minerva." "I cannot see. Damn it, what the hell is this?" "Minerva, if you miss Eagle Eye so much, I will send you to join her. Give her my regards." A bullet flew toward Minerva. El Palm reached her in time, pulled her into his arms, and laid her down in a safe place. The enemy snarled, "You should not be able to see anything either. Close your eyes immediately. That man is far too unpredictable." El Palm hurled an orb at the disciples with tremendous force, but they endured the attack. "What do you think that will accomplish?" "What? Impossible. How can his attack be so powerful? They are only fire arrows. Stop them." El Palm unleashed another barrage of fire arrows, catching them completely off guard. He changed the fire arrow's direction. Minerva recovered and exclaimed happily, "I can see again. Everything we do is for the dark magician." The disciple hurled a fireball toward Minerva's group. El Palm desperately searched for a solution. "I'm nearly exhausted. I must reach the second gate before I run out of mana." But it was already too late. The enemy caught up, knocked Minerva into the ravine, and shattered the second gate in an instant. A massive explosion nearly sealed the gate completely. The second gate. Have we lost that bastard El Palm? One of the disciples tried to reassure the others. "Do not worry. The gate will soon regenerate. Besides, our true objective is to kill that woman." The most aggressive man in the group charged Minerva with a brutal barrage of punches. However, she was quicker than he expected. She slipped out of his range, lunged behind him, and restrained him at close quarters. She fired a painful shot into Pedro's leg. Seizing the opening, Minerva struck him hard across the back. Her allies then fired repeatedly into the wound, making him scream in agony. It seemed as though he would be defeated easily, but his superhuman strength allowed him to keep fighting. He charged Minerva again, but fortunately, she reacted in time and fired into his vital point. After finishing him with a single decisive shot, she turned to warn the others. "We have no more time. The gate is about to close. Hurry and enter." Another strange phenomenon occurred as several openings appeared. Could all of these be second gates? Ralph believed they might be special gates, having previously heard rumors about them. They connected to different locations within the second area. In other words, once a certain number of people passed through one gate, it would close, forcing everyone left behind to use a different one. Dibwa asked, "If we cannot know where each gate leads, what happens if we fall somewhere dangerous? What if we run straight into the boss?" Ralph sighed helplessly. "We have no other choice. We will have to leave it to fate. For now, all we can do is try entering these gates." When they began entering, they discovered that each gate allowed no more than 3 people through. Ralph reminded everyone, "Stay alert and observe your surroundings. Elpalm will probably pass through a different gate, so we must regroup as quickly as possible." Something was approaching from the distance, heading straight toward them. Dibwa was the first to notice it. Within moments, the distant figure drew closer. It looked exactly like Iburu. A horde of monsters was chasing him as he screamed for help. The others looked as though they wanted to drive him away before he brought the monsters to them. In another area, Elpalm fought a group of unusually tenacious monsters. However, he soon noticed that something was wrong. These are not ordinary monsters. Strangely enough, they are wearing pirate clothing, just like us. Could they once have been human? The others complained. "These monsters cling to life like leeches. This is not the time to be thinking about nonsense. They simply refuse to die. They keep moving even after being shot in the head, and we are almost out of ammunition." After several attacks, Elpalm discovered that each monster had a core inside its body. Are these human corpses that have been transformed into monsters? They have no weak points, so attacking any part of their bodies will not bring them down. What the hell is happening? This is different from before my regression. I must discover the cause, no matter what. After thinking for a moment, he realized that mana threads might be connected to the monsters. Damn it, I cannot tell how far those connections extend, but there is definitely something beyond that wall. Elpalm attempted to examine the area using mana, but he had already reached his limit. He no longer had enough mana to maintain the skill. He became dizzy and distracted, forcing Kevin to warn him, "Focus, the monsters are almost upon us." Just when death seemed inevitable, Minerva suddenly appeared. She drew the monsters' attention and brought them down with her gun. One of Minerva's shots blasted straight through the cavern wall, making everyone's heart skip a beat. However, such overwhelming firepower was normal for her. The situation remained dire. The monsters were unnaturally tenacious, and the group was badly outnumbered. Minerva prepared to expend all her remaining mana, but Elpalm suddenly spoke. "Are you planning to use that ability?" Minerva mocked him. "What are you talking about when you look ready to collapse? Can you not see those monsters? We do not have time to wait." Dibwa's group was approximately 1 kilometer away. There was little time left and no room for further hesitation. Elpalm asked them to buy him 3 minutes so he could clear the gate. Meanwhile, Dibwa's group was also fighting desperately to eliminate the persistent undead. Although those creatures had once been human, decapitating them was far from easy because of their overwhelming numbers. They had to use every method available to destroy them completely. Kiri and Iburu fought the creatures with remarkable vigor. However, just after receiving praise, Iburu caused trouble for the entire party by accidentally awakening a higher-level monster. At Elpalm's gate, Minerva and Kevin desperately cleared a path so that he could concentrate on awakening his mana and absorbing power from the monster core. However, attempting this in such a short time, while already injured, caused Elpalm's body to convulse with pain. He desperately endured the strain of absorbing such an enormous quantity of mana. He did not want to push himself this hard again, but he had no other choice in such a desperate situation. It is too early to create another mana circle. If I force it before I am ready, it will only hinder me. Then I have only one option. Before his regression, he had repeatedly faced situations like this, with the monsters growing increasingly powerful. If he lacked the mana needed to launch attacks at critical moments, he would die. Once he reached the limit of the 6th mana circle, forcing out more magic would damage his mana. He now had to find another way to fight them. It was a gamble. Monster cores were normally used to advance one's mana circles according to the monster's nature. But if he absorbed this core directly, could it not serve as an emergency source of mana? In theory, he could restore his mana that way. All that remained was to guide the surging waves of mana through his heart in the direction of his blood flow. If my body can withstand this pressure, will I be able to awaken that power? El Palm succeeded, ensuring that his companion's desperate efforts to buy him time had not been in vain. An enormous torrent of mana erupted from El Palm, leaving Minerva staring in astonishment. His appearance and physical condition seemed to transform, and the power radiating from him was terrifyingly intense. Meanwhile, Kiri and Dibwa's group continued fighting desperately against the monsters while searching for a way to deal with the higher-level creature Ibiru had awakened. It was not merely undead. It was a fungal parasite that other pirates had spread, creating what was known as a mushroom zombie. Their strength lies in their chains. They attack by transmitting poison through them, and anyone infected will become one of the undead. Everyone up ahead is gradually becoming exhausted after fighting these living corpses for so long. If they do not quickly eliminate the creature controlling them from behind, they will all be wiped out. Dibwa wants to fight them alone to give everyone else time to move forward. And so, he charges straight at them. Their overwhelming power nearly kills him in an instant, but Kiri takes the attack in his place. Her fate remains uncertain, but El Palm's group appears close to clearing this stage. Minerva focuses on shooting the enemies while El Palm is tasked with destroying the enormous fortress wall. They have only one chance left. El Palm must concentrate with all his might and prepare to fire an extremely precise, highly destructive shot. But will they succeed? Fortunately, the resulting tremor generates enough force to shatter the wall. Meanwhile, Dibwa's situation has become extremely dangerous. Dibwa discovers the truth. These monsters do not possess magic stone cores. The puppets before him have deceived him and clouded his judgment. Where are the magical threads connecting and controlling them coming from? These unkillable monsters are being controlled by something else entirely. Their true enemy is the mastermind behind them. El Palm has already discovered the key. He blasts off the mastermind's head and destroys them all, accomplishing what Dibwa has only just realized. The monsters gradually disintegrate, their body parts crumbling and scattering everywhere. El Palm laughs joyfully, his face filled with pride. This dungeon's mission is now complete. Memories of the past return to Minerva, a painful childhood in which her parents abandoned her, followed by greedy adults who left her alone in a remote corner of a narrow street. The only person who protected us orphans from those people was Kiri. From that moment onward, I saw Kiri as my hero. 15 years have passed since Master adopted us. Time has flown by at a dizzying pace, like waves continually coming and going. As always, the two girls sit together by the sea and confide in each other. Minerva once again feels insecure about herself. It feels as though the distance between us grows greater with every passing minute. Seeing Minerva's spirits sink, Kiri encourages her. Don't be like that. Your confidence is your greatest strength. It's all right. I'll always be by your side. Returning to the present, they are relieved to see that Kiri's body remains intact after the boss's attack. She jokes that her amazing new armor saved her life, but Ralph argues, "It was my healing that saved you. Luckily, I still had enough mana, or this place would have become your grave." Minerva's spirits plummet once more as she torments herself with guilt. They prepared everything thoroughly. Green and Catherine remained by your side for so long, yet half the team's members were disciples. I can't imagine how many more are still hiding among us. Don't trust anyone. I think this is the end for me. I couldn't keep my promise. I'm sorry, my little sister. Minerva sobs uncontrollably. The battle ends with many members and countless others losing their lives. The Black Wings on the island attempt to assess the situation, but before they can gather much information, they are suddenly ambushed by an elite marksman. The female sharpshooter Kirin appears to avenge her younger sister. Just then, Minerva emerges carrying Kiri's seemingly lifeless body in her arms, causing Kirin to freeze for a long moment. The enemy was even stronger than anyone we encountered before. Hearing this makes Kirin even more distraught. She cannot believe the sight before her. Afterward, everyone boards the airship to rest and recover for the next battle. Kirin chooses to remain behind and negotiate an agreement. Although their negotiations conclude, they still have work to do together, so Kirin must continue helping him. She decides to treat it as a separate agreement. Instead of the one treasury item she originally promised, he may now take 2. In exchange, I will uncover every disciple of the Dark Magician still hiding in Nautilus. On the ship, Ralph privately approaches Minerva regarding the conversation between her and El Palm that he overheard earlier. Thanks to him, everything went according to plan this time. But the disciples who killed Kiri are still out there. I'm sure you want revenge, and so do I. If you travel with El Palm, you'll fight them directly. I believe he's both trustworthy and powerful. Upon reaching their new destination, Kirin and El Palm lead the way into the fortress through a waterway. Kirin effortlessly clears away every obstacle and aerial ambush, allowing them to open the fortress gate with ease. To their astonishment, mountains of gold and treasure lie before them. When El Palm asks about the value of the items, Kirin responds with her usual indifference. What pirate would tell you how much her treasure is worth? You'll have to judge for yourself. Let me be clear, I only promised you 2 items. El Palm privately thinks that she is truly cold-hearted. Nevertheless, this place contains far more treasure than he expected. The Onyx Dragon Staff, the Dominator Pendant, the Dawn Guardian Angel. He can hardly believe his eyes. But since he may choose only 2 items, he must take the 2 finest ones. Trusting his instincts, El Palm selects the least impressive-looking antique in the entire collection. On the final day, while the adventurers were fighting on the front lines, one disciple massacred the Adventurers Guild members. That traitor to humanity was Reek. He infiltrated the highest ranks of the guild and betrayed everyone at the most critical moment, inflicting a devastating blow upon them. The symbol of terror he used. I lost so many people because of that bastard. Did he take it from this place? El Palm discovers the ancient bracelet and chooses it as his first item. Even Kirin is stunned. You have a good eye, but those items don't suit your attributes. Why are you so determined to choose them? El Palm then notices an unremarkable ring that strangely draws his gaze, so he selects it as his second item. Strangely, the moment he touches it, the ring slips onto his finger and fits perfectly, as though it has acknowledged him as its master. Kirin senses something unusual about the ring and refuses to give it to him because it does not belong to her. However, El Palm cannot remove it, almost as if he is the ring's true owner. Elsewhere, the problem involving the Golden Rich Merchant Guild has been resolved. It turns out that a third party was responsible for all the trouble El Palm's group encountered. After returning to the inn, Minerva shoulders her backpack and prepares to depart on a new journey. As on their previous adventures, everyone bids a reluctant farewell to the people there and sets out once more. Before they can leave, Minerva arrives just in time and shouts excitedly, "Wait, where's my place?" This time, she wants to join them aboard their ship, traveling and fighting alongside her new companions. The moment El Palm returns to ABI's, he is confronted. How can you come back so confidently when you're empty-handed? But this mission was exceptionally difficult for everyone, and returning alive was already a miracle. What? The expedition was even larger than expected? Then how can you treat this mission as though it were nothing? I want to broaden the scope of the next phase a little further. The disciples who infiltrated our guild certainly won't simply sit back and watch. We must act just as they are acting now. El Palm still does not intend to reveal everything to him. If war breaks out, that man's narrow-minded goal of merely bringing down a single faction will prevent him from handling matters properly, and he will never reach the root of the disciples' organization. Gayfer is also running out of patience, so El Palm must act quickly. Suddenly, Gayfer adds, "He admitted even more people into the guild without discussing it with me. Now I'll have to pay all of you even more." Diwo defends Baume. Isn't it good to have another capable member? And why should we need your permission when boss is the guild master? Ralph loudly agrees. Exactly. He's the guild master. Who decided that? We're still competing for the position. Well, he's only the temporary guild master. Kiri appears and declares, that old man needs a beating. If you have any objections, show me what your skills can do. Elpalm gives him a sharp, serious look and says, I'm always ready for a match. After their argument, they head in separate directions. The small-time thugs hiding behind the building grumble enviously. Damn it, do they think they have extra lives to spare? Why don't they pay any attention to us? Why do they always leave on their own? Split up. We'll follow that man. Elpalm recalls what Kieran told him. If you can't remove that ring, then it may be an item that chooses its own master. But you'll still need permission from its original owner. Elpalm, therefore, travels to the stronghold of the ring's owner. He is surprised to find an intimidating and violent-looking woman before him. When he explains that he has come to ask for her permission, she appears slightly startled. He explains that he's been unable to remove the ring ever since it slipped onto his finger by itself. Seeing the ring radiate a murderous aura and an enormous amount of mana, the woman stares at it in astonishment. She then sighs and says, I cannot give it to you because its true owner isn't here. Elpalm asks, can you bring that person here? I don't even know how to use this ring, so I need someone to explain it to me. Starling treats this as a formal request. Please rescue Pyru, the hero tracker. By humanity's final days, they had been driven into a corner, but 6 exceptional heroes arose. Evan, Luminous, the enemy of fate. Phantom, the master thief. Mercedes, the spirit king. Aaron, the polearm hero. And Yunwal. The return of those 6 heroes marked a new beginning. With their tremendous power, they easily annihilated the monsters, and everyone witnessed their overwhelming strength. It was a miracle of their making. We regained hope and believed that they would save us once again. But we did not know that the power of the 6 heroes, newly awakened from their seals, was unstable. 800 years ago, during the war against the Dark Magician, the heroes' items were scattered throughout fissures in time. For unknown reasons, they have now been discovered within several different dimensional gates. The Adventurers Guild cannot delay the enemy long enough for the heroes to recover their strength. But this time will be different. We must create a sturdy shield capable of withstanding the disciples. We will serve as bait to lure them out, while the forces of the Maple World gather together, forge a mighty alliance, and change history. Elpalm and his companions set out for their new destination. The new day appears peaceful and promising, but then Elpalm notices something unusual. He gives the others several mana-infused shields, enabling them to open a new dimensional gate and travel to their next battlefield. Elpalm begins to question everything. Could this be one of the heroes' items? Thus begins their journey to rescue Pyru. The first gate has completely collapsed. Dibor rejoices and boasts proudly. We conquered the first gate in only 3 hours. Isn't that a new record? That was ridiculously easy. Those fireboars, or whatever, were nothing. Seeing Dibwa's arrogance, Kiri looks displeased and tells him to wipe the soot from his face. Minerva stares at him in surprise. Didn't you say that you only recently formed your first mana circle? Dibwa becomes even more delighted and boasts with greater confidence. Well, I'm a genius. I might even be the second greatest genius after boss. At this rate, I'll reach the 3rd circle, maybe even the 4th, very soon. Ralph sarcastically remarks, You're getting awfully excited. Dibwa chuckles. What, are you jealous? Only Elpalm remains cautious and humble. He warns everyone not to celebrate too soon. Contrary to popular belief, rapidly forming mana circles is not necessarily a good thing. Dibwa asks why not. Elpalm explains, advancing to another mana circle causes all your physical attributes to change rapidly. If that happens over a short period, it places tremendous strain on your body. You must learn to balance your training with what your body can withstand. Forming mana circles too quickly can hinder your future growth. Dibwa stares blankly, his eyes and mouth wide open. What? But you formed 2 circles too. You advance quickly as well. Elpalm replies, I had no other choice at the time. Even so, I waited 2 months before forming my 3rd. Minerva breaks into a nervous sweat and thinks. He makes it sound as though he can advance whenever he wants. Elpalm, however, is worried. Before regressing, he had been unable to advance beyond the 7th circle. Every dangerous situation had forced him to advance, but ironically, advancing too quickly prevented him from progressing any further. Now that he knows the future, he cannot stop at the 6th circle. He must advance at the perfect moment to reach the 7th, no, the 8th. Kiri then says, "Didn't we get here too quickly? Our objective is to find someone, not conquer the gates. What if we pass him in the first gate?" El Palm takes out a magical artifact and places it over his eyes. "Don't worry, that didn't happen. I already checked." Dibwa teases him. "That weird eye covering again? You keep putting it on and taking it off. Do you really use it to find people?" El Palm immediately replies, "As long as the person is still alive." Through his strange eye covering, he then detects hundreds, no thousands of presences. "We have guests." Dibwa becomes visibly alarmed. A wall suddenly explodes into dust and smoke. Dibwa stares in horror at the scene before him. What the hell is this? Who are these things? There are too many. Everyone run. A horde of monstrous skeletal creatures surges toward them. Minerva warns everyone. They're skeletons. Bullets won't work on them. Damn it, Kiri shouts while running. First zombies, and now skeletons? Do we have to fight these things from now on? Ralph grits his teeth and charges forward. We don't have a choice. Suddenly, Kiri shouts a warning. Everyone duck. Hurry. The skeletons continue charging toward them like mad. Dibwa grabs the door lever and pulls it down with all his strength, blocking the skeletons. Suddenly, Pyru appears and invokes her piercing monocle. Hunter's Eye, 14 targets. That was close. Pyru looks utterly exhausted, her face pale and gaunt as though she is about to collapse. She begs, "Please, give me something to eat." The moment she finishes speaking, she faints on the ground. After receiving some food, Pyru recovers. She explains, "I've become familiar with this place after being trapped here. I know the skeleton's behavior and all the mechanisms here." She also produces a talisman and adds, "I'm quite confident in my infiltration abilities. The problem is that I ran out of food 5 days ago, and there aren't any monsters left that I can hunt for me." Even Dibwa is impressed by the talisman's power. That talisman uses some amazing magic, but Pyru continues lamenting. "I was about to starve to death." El Palm begins, "Pyru, there's something I want to ask you." However, seeing her eating with puffed cheeks and wide eyes, he changes his mind. "Never mind. Finish eating first." Minerva giggles. "We're lucky, though. We've already found the exit. We can simply leave without defeating the boss." Pyru nearly chokes while swallowing her bread. Panting heavily, she says, "Wait, not yet. There's something I need to ask of you." Dibwa and Minerva stare at her in confusion. Pyru suddenly drops to her knees and pleads desperately, "Please protect me for 3 days. Just 3 days, please. I'm searching for an item. If I leave now, my friends will have died for nothing. I want to venture deeper, but I'm not good at fighting, so I can't continue alone. Please help me. I promise I'll find it within 3 days, and I'll reward all of you." Despite her sincerity, El Palm remains puzzled. How can you find an item in 3 days when you fail to find it after an entire month? "I don't have 3 days to waste here." Pyru continues pleading earnestly. "It's different. I haven't searched the dangerous area yet. There's one place where I believe the item might be." Watching from a high window, Yuck smiles smugly to himself. "So that has begun. This time you won't escape, El Palm." Suddenly, a voice rang out from nowhere. "Are you certain, Yucks?" Startled, Yuck shouted, "Who's there?" The many-eyed monster appeared and said sinisterly, "Disappointing, Yucks. I thought you were useful, but you cannot even eliminate a rising adventurer. How much longer do you intend to disgrace yourself?" Yucks knelt and pleaded, "Lord Win, I have no excuse. I will accept any punishment you see fit, but the plan to eliminate him is already underway. Please give me one chance to redeem myself." Hearing this, Lord Win asked, "Oh, so you intend to take responsibility? Tell me your plan." Meanwhile, El Palm and the others were still fiercely battling the skeletons. After finishing them off, Dibwa exclaimed joyfully, "Great, the entrance is sealed." "That was easy," Pyru replied. "We're running out of time. These mechanisms aren't perfect. When one passage closes, another opens. They are bound to realize that soon." El Palm said, "We simply need to find what you're looking for before they find us again. Now, let's see what item belonging to the great hero you're searching for." That is all for this episode. Please like and share so we can continue bringing you more exciting stories.